Chapter 1424. Jin Yuanfeng, what's the matter? I don't have time to chat with you now. Try to keep it short. The water basin where the voice-transmitting talisman was placed rippled, and transparent bubbles floated to the surface of the water. An ethereal voice suddenly sounded in the room. It was hard to tell if it was a man or a woman, but the tone was urgent. Young master, there's a situation in the area I'm in charge of today. The leader of the horse bandits, Jin Yuanfeng, quickly shouted to the water basin. What situation? Get to the point. The person who was called young master ordered concisely. Yes. Jin Yuanfeng nodded respectfully and said, a few days ago, an expert from the Fan family came to Moyao town. Then, he was intercepted by our people when he was transporting goods to Ba Immortal Town. I didn't expect that guy to not only kill one of my Golden Core subordinates, but also injure and capture dozens of people. So, I think it's necessary to report this situation to you. The young master paused for a moment, and the voice that came again was a little surprised. There's such a thing? Do you know where the Fan family hired the expert from? What's the specific strength of that person? Did you find out which family or sect she came from? This. I'm not sure about the specific strength, and I couldn't find out who's backing her. Jin Yuanfeng sighed with some annoyance and said hesitantly. You don't know this and that, then what do you know? The young master's voice was obviously a little dissatisfied. According to the information that came back, we only know that the girl and her grandfather were originally working in a shop under the Fan family. Later, because they killed the Fan family's bodyguard and revealed their true strength, they were invited back by Old Man Fan in the process of escaping. Jin Yuanfeng hurriedly reported what he knew about the situation. What? The expert from the Fan family is a woman? And she has a grandfather? The young master was slightly stunned, and asked in a deep voice, didn't the horse bandits under you fight with her? Did you feel her strength? What about her grandfather's strength? Reporting to young master, according to the speculations of the subordinates who escaped, that chick's cultivation is at least at the 7th or 8th level of the gold core stage. However, her grandfather's strength isn't that great. It seems that he's only at the qi refining or foundation establishment stage. Jin Yuanfeng hesitated for a moment. He felt that his subordinate's report was a little unreliable, but he still said it. There's actually such a huge difference. The young master was silent for a while before asking, what do she and her grandfather look like? Give me a simple description, and I'll help you investigate to see which sect or family he's from. Oh, that little girl is quite pretty. Her eyes are very big, and her nose bridge is also very high. However, her figure is not that great. As for that old man, he is very ordinary. Apart from his gloomy expression, there doesn't seem to be anything special about him. Jin Yuanfeng tried hard to recall the situation and answered with difficulty. At that time, his subordinates were scared out of their wits and were busy running for their lives. How could they have the time to take a closer look at what the other party looked like? Therefore, the information he received was only as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. What kind of nonsense is this? I asked you to talk about the other party's appearance, why are you talking about her figure? Besides, the information you reported is nondescript. Where do you want me to find her for you? There are many beautiful women in the world of cultivators, and gloomy old men are a dime a dozen. How do you want me to find her? This is simply nonsense. The young master was very displeased as he scolded. The corner of Jin Yuanfeng's mouth twitched after being scolded. He said with a bitter face, I'm sorry, young master. Why don't you just tell me what I should do next? If worst comes to worst, I'll personally take action and capture that little girl and her grandfather. Then, I'll hand them over to you to deal with. What do you think? What's the use of capturing them? I can't be bothered with your trivial matters. The young master replied somewhat impatiently. Then what should we do? Jin Yuanfeng didn't dare to talk back and asked cautiously. The young master seemed to have thought it through. After hearing what was said, he decisively said, the disciples of those big families and sects definitely won't be so bored as to run to the remote Moyao town just to help the Fan family. Since her strength is so low, you might as well directly challenge her to a battle and kill them all. Lest the night is fraught with dreams and they come up with something else. At this time, the young master's heart was very clear. Moyao town was located in a remote desert, and the Fan family wasn't some famous family. The people they could invite naturally didn't have any background or identity. At most, they only had a little bit of cultivation strength. Even if they killed them, there definitely wouldn't be anyone who would seek revenge for them. Therefore, they didn't need to worry about anything. After killing them and throwing them into the desert, who would know it was the horse bandits who did it? Good. I'll listen to young master. I'll write the battle invitation now. Jin Yuanfeng came to a sudden realization and quickly nodded. He immediately found a pen and paper and wrote with great speed. After a while, Jin Yuanfeng finished writing the battle invitation and read it to the young master. After obtaining his approval, he put the written battle invitation in an envelope and ordered the servants to quickly send it to the Fan family. Alright, if there's nothing else, then let's leave it at that. In the future, don't report such small matters to me. You can make your own decisions. After saying that, the young master's voice disappeared, and the voice-transmitting talisman floating on the water also melted in the clear water. Alright, young master, just wait for my good news. Although the voice-transmitting talisman had disappeared, Jin Yuanfeng still made a vow to the basin with all his might. Early the next morning, Fan Yuqiao received the battle invitation from Jin Yuanfeng. This situation was also unexpected to him. However, Fan Yuqiao naturally couldn't help Cheng Menjing make a decision. He could only send someone to find Cheng Menjing and Xiaofan Giant Bull, the two mighty immortals, and present the battle invitation to them. Then, he waited for them to read it and discuss countermeasures together. Those horse bandits are really annoying. I thought that the scar-faced man was the leader of the horse bandits. I didn't expect that there was a damn leader behind him. After reading the letter, Cheng Menjing was so angry that she directly crumpled the letter into a ball and threw it on the table. Before Xiaofan Giant Bull could finish reading it, Cheng Menjing began to fly into a rage. He had to pick up the ball of paper from the corner of the table, carefully unfolded it, and read the rest of the content. Cheng Menjing was still angrily stamping her feet and shouting, "All you know is fighting and killing all day long. What's the point of that? There are so many people, can't they do something serious? Must they fight?" Chapter 14:25. The giant bull flicked the crumpled invitation and said coldly, "It doesn't matter. Since Jin Yuanfeng is so eager to die, why don't you fulfill his wish, granddaughter? As long as you kill him, the Fan family will be able to relieve some pressure, and their business will definitely be much better. It's easy for you to say. What if he's stronger than me? Then I'll be the one to die. I won't do it." Cheng Menjing glared at the bull unhappily. She thought that this greedy old guy must want to take the opportunity to extort Fan Yuqiao of spirit crystals again. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so proactive. "Humph, if you're so capable, why don't you do it? I don't think there's anything to be afraid of. No matter how powerful he is, his strength can't be higher than yours." Xiaofan Giant Yak confidently guaranteed, then smiled mysteriously and said, "Besides, don't I still have a secret weapon in my hand?" "What secret weapon? Why haven't I heard you mention it before?" Cheng Menjing asked in surprise. She suddenly thought of something and said with a strange expression, "You're not talking about that, that's right." Xiaofan Giant Yak nodded proudly, took out the banner with the strange pattern, and said in a serious tone, "If his strength is so superb that it has reached the same level as yours, then you can use this banner to lower his cultivation, and then you can beat him. It's absolutely safe. TSK, as if it's true. Do you know how to use this thing?" Cheng Menjing rolled her eyes at the sky and threatened the bull instead. You're using someone else's magic weapon as a treasure. Be careful of the backlash, or I won't save you. It wasn't that Cheng Menjing looked down on the banner. She just felt that it was best not to use unfamiliar things indiscriminately. Otherwise, God knows what dangerous situation would occur. Oh, it's not difficult at all. Xiaofan giant bull did not take Cheng Menjing's threat to heart at all. Instead, it raised the flag and said excitedly, I saw that guy just casually stuck the flag in the ground and chanted a spell to activate it. The spell seemed to be, the cowboy recalled carefully, then threw the flag in his hand to the ground. Relying on his memory, he chanted a few strange incantations at the flag. Not only did Cheng Menjing frown, even he himself was not sure if he was chanting correctly. After a while, the banner on the ground did not respond at all. Xiaofan giant yak changed its method and chanted another set of incantations, but it still had no effect. After that, no matter how the Xiaofan giant yak chanted in a different posture or incantation, the banner on the ground did not change at all. Gradually, this fellow felt a little embarrassed, but he still forced himself to chant the incantation, not knowing how to end the situation. Great hero Xiaofan, we don't have much time now. Why don't we try again another day? Seeing this, Fan Yuqiao had to come out and smooth things over. He smiled amiably and said, let's solve the problem of the horse gang's provocation first. This broken flag, it's stupid when it's time to make me proud. It's really not useful. Hearing this, Xiaofan giant bull had to put away the flag embarrassedly and took the opportunity to step down. Fan Yuqiao naturally would not say anything more to Xiaofan giant bull. Instead, he turned to Cheng Menjing and said with a smile, Fairy Cheng, if you have the confidence, why don't you go and meet the horse gang leader, Jin Yuanfeng? The horse gang here should be under his control. If you can kill him, it will be a great contribution to Moyao Town. I will pay you a large sum of spirit crystals as your reward. What do you think? The Xiaofan giant ox was feeling dejected, but when it heard that there were spirit crystals to take, its eyes lit up and it immediately egged her on, granddaughter, on account of Patriarch Fan's sincerity, why don't you agree? We can go and see the situation first. If we really can't beat him, then we can think of other ways. You're useless. Hearing spirit crystals makes your ears go soft. Cheng Menjing rolled her eyes at Xiaofan giant bull and directly exposed his purpose. However, scolding was just scolding. Cheng Menjing really wanted to earn more spirit crystals for her expenses in the immortal cultivation world after she left the Fan family. For the past few days, the Fan family had been working hard to find people, but none of the information they sent back was about Xiao Chen. Cheng Menjing estimated that the Fan family might not be able to find those people. When the time came, she would have to go to the Dada Immortal Cultivation Chamber of Commerce and entrust them to find the whereabouts of Xiao Chen and the others. At that time, she would have to spend a lot of spirit crystals. Thinking of this, Cheng Menjing did not want to refuse. She nodded decisively and said, okay, then let's go and meet the horse gang leader. However, I don't know the place written on the invitation. I'll have to trouble Master Fan to find someone to lead the way for me. Okay. This is a small matter, absolutely no problem. Fan Yuqiao happily agreed. He looked at the sky outside and added, since the time of the battle is in the afternoon, after lunch, I'll ask the servants to bring 2 horses over. Then, I'll find a servant who knows the road best to guide you to that place. Fan Yuqiao was looking forward to it. If Cheng Menjing could really kill the horse gang leader, then the Fan family would be the biggest beneficiary. Not only would the road to Baxian County be unimpeded, but they would also not have to worry about their goods being hijacked in the future. After lunch, it was almost time for the agreed time. Cheng Menjing and Xiaofan giant bull were led by the Fan family to a suburb west of Moyao Town. This was the place designated by Jin Yuanfeng for the decisive battle. Under the scorching afternoon sun, the endless yellow sand emitted waves of heat visible to the naked eye. Jin Yuanfeng led his horse gang to stand in a row. They had been waiting here for a long time. When Jin Yuanfeng saw Cheng Menjing and Xishan Giant Bull, his eyes flashed with a strong killing intent. If it weren't for these two people appearing out of nowhere and disrupting his robbery, he wouldn't have failed to rob the Fan family's goods and lost a golden core expert for nothing. Cheng Menjing urged her horse forward and slowly approached the place where Jin Yuanfeng was standing. Xishan Giant Bull and the Fan family's servant stayed not far away, hiding under a small tree to watch. Xishan Giant Bull had a clear understanding of himself. His cultivation was too low and he was very timid. If he was accidentally injured, it would be a big joke. Therefore, he only dared to stand far away and did not dare to rashly enter the range of the battle between the two. Jin Yuanfeng saw Cheng Menjing approaching and asked loudly, "You are the Cheng family's guest?" Chapter 1426. That's me. Cheng Menjing was too lazy to hide and nodded calmly. After carefully sizing up Cheng Menjing, Jin Yuanfeng sneered and said, "Tsk, you're indeed very beautiful. No wonder my useless and lecherous subordinate would fall into your hands. But I have to say, you actually dared to come to the appointment without knowing your opponent's strength. I really don't know if you're stupid, or if you've been blinded by your previous victory. That's enough. Why are you nagging so much? This damn place is too hot. I don't have time to waste with you. What if my delicate skin gets tanned? There's no sunscreen here. Hurry up and make your move." Cheng Menjing frowned and urged impatiently. Cheng Menjing's skin was very fair. Although she sometimes envied that kind of healthy, wheat-colored skin, she didn't want to be tanned like an African nigger. So, she wanted to finish as soon as possible and call it a day. Ha ha ha. It seems that the saying "beautiful women don't have brains" is indeed true. Little girl, you're really a fool. Jin Yuanfeng looked up to the sky and laughed, then suddenly stopped. He stared at Cheng Menjing and said with a murderous look, "Then don't blame me for being ruthless." As soon as his voice fell, Jin Yuanfeng's body trembled, and his pupils emitted a bright light. His feet stepped heavily on the ground, and his whole body rose from the horse and flew in the direction of Cheng Menjing. In the process of gliding, Jin Yuanfeng's fist had already condensed a thick layer of yuan qi. With the momentum of the dive, he fiercely smashed towards Cheng Menjing. Why don't you have an artifact?" Cheng Menjing couldn't help but be surprised and asked subconsciously. Although she was surprised, Cheng Menjing's dodging movements didn't hesitate. She quickly supported herself with her palms on the horse's back, then made a beautiful backflip, and landed on the sand with a graceful and smooth posture. Bang! Jin Yuanfeng's fist missed and smashed into the horse's back. The horse let out a mournful cry as a bloody hole appeared on its body. It fell to the ground and struggled for a while before spitting out blood and dying. Cheng Menjing frowned. At this moment, she had already figured out Jin Yuanfeng's strength from his punch. He was merely at level 2 of the original infant stage. She was relieved. After she stood still, she didn't wait for Jin Yuanfeng to make another move. She immediately pushed her palm towards him. Jin Yuanfeng's mouth suddenly curled into a strange smile when he felt the strong air wave coming towards him. He said in a strange tone, "Tsk, I didn't expect you to have such rich fighting experience at such a young age. It's a pity that your strength is too low. Otherwise, it's very likely that you would have succeeded." As soon as he finished speaking, Jin Yuanfeng unbuttoned his shirt, revealing a diamond-shaped mirror. Cheng Menjing looked at Jin Yuanfeng's actions in bewilderment. That mirror looked extremely ordinary. Could it be that this fellow thought that he could use an ordinary heart protection mirror to block my attack? However, Cheng Menjing quickly realized that she was wrong. When Jin Yuanfeng channeled his qi into the mirror actually reflected a transparent barrier in front of him. At this moment, Cheng Menjing's palm wind had just touched the surface of the barrier when the barrier suddenly flashed with a layer of light. Immediately after, the palm wind was reflected back. What the hell is this? Ugh. Cheng Menjing was momentarily shocked. She didn't have the time to dodge and was hit by the rebound palm wind. Fortunately, Cheng Menjing had already used her qi to protect the vital parts of her body. Although she was pushed back a few steps by her own palm wind and her internal organs churned for a while, it wasn't a big deal. Little girl, didn't you ask me why I don't have a magic artifact? This is my magic artifact. Pointing to the diamond-shaped mirror hanging on his chest, Jin Yuanfeng proudly raised his chin and said, "You are a teenage mutant ninja turtle." Cheng Menjing finally calmed down her surging qi and blood and couldn't help but scold him. What turtle? Jin Yuanfeng blinked his eyes. He didn't understand the term Cheng Menjing mentioned. He simply continued to introduce it with satisfaction, but that's not important. My magic artifact is a defensive type. Its effect is indeed the same as a turtle's shell. It can perfectly reflect the opponent's attack. With your insignificant strength, any attack you launch will not be able to harm me. Instead, it will only cause you more pain. So I advise you to obediently surrender. Shishan Nyo, who was listening not far away, suddenly changed his expression. He didn't expect there to be such a shameless magic artifact in the world of immortal cultivation. It seemed that Cheng Menjing was in trouble this time. Even if she could win, she would have to pay a great price. But on second thought, Shishan Nyo felt that he was lucky. The palm wind that Cheng Menjing had launched just now didn't seem to exert her full strength. It was obvious that she was also testing the opponent. Otherwise, she would have been killed by him by now. So that's how it is. It seems that I really underestimated you. After listening to him, Cheng Menjing nodded and smiled slightly, but now that you have revealed the secret of the magic artifact, there is no need for me to hold back anymore. Let's end the battle as soon as possible. Before she finished speaking, Cheng Menjing's elemental energy, which was originally covering her body, suddenly surged. Her cultivation at the peak of the nascent soul stage was instantly revealed. Before anyone could react, she waved her slender left palm at Jin Yuanfeng and shouted, "Dark Devour." WH. What? You're not at the second level of the original infant stage. Jin Yuanfeng was stunned by the aura that Cheng Menjing was emitting. He stuttered in shock. The girl in front of him seemed to have changed into a different person. From her petite body, a majestic pressure was released. It caused Jin Yuanfeng to feel a deep sense of fear. A gust of suffocating air, mixed with the sand that had been roasted by the sun, swept toward Jin Yuanfeng in an overwhelming manner. Although he was still in the middle of the desert, Jin Yuanfeng felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He hurriedly used all his strength and poured all the qi in his body into the mirror in front of his chest. A transparent barrier that was even wider and thicker than before was quickly reflected in the mirror, standing straight in front of Jin Yuanfeng. Seeing that the powerful qi was blocked outside the barrier, Jin Yuanfeng let out a sigh of relief. Boom! In the blink of an eye, Cheng Menjing's martial technique smashed heavily on the thick barrier. At that moment, it was as if the entire world had come to a standstill. Even the flying grains of sand seemed to have stopped moving in that instant. Jin Yuanfeng and the mounted gangsters behind him stared fixedly at the barrier. All sound had disappeared from their ears. The only thing left in the world was the barrier and the powerful qi in front of it. Chapter 1427. It seemed like a century had passed, but it also seemed like only a second had passed. The barrier seemed to be motionless, perfectly blocking Cheng Menjing's martial arts. Jin Yuanfeng's face just showed a touch of joy, but he suddenly heard a crack sound. The joy immediately froze on his face, and it turned into horror and disbelief. With the sound, a crack gradually appeared on the barrier, and it became bigger and bigger. As the strength of the qi continued to increase, the originally fine cracks on the barrier gradually spread like a spider web. The entire barrier seemed to be on the verge of collapse, and it could shatter at any time. This is impossible. Jin Yuanfeng was already dumbfounded, and he muttered to himself. Suddenly, there was a slight, crack sound in front of his chest. This sound was like thunder in Jin Yuanfeng's ears, and he immediately looked down in panic. He saw that the treasure mirror that he was so proud of had also been shaken by the strength of the qi, and the treasure mirror that was originally full of spiritual qi suddenly lost its light and became extremely dim. Because the magic weapon had already broken, the barrier that protected Jin Yuanfeng naturally collapsed in an instant. Although the barrier had resisted most of the damage, the remaining qi still blasted him backward, and he fell headfirst on the hot sand. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, then he fainted. The rest of the horse bandits were stunned. They had come confidently to watch their boss take revenge and cheer him on. In the end, in the blink of an eye, they were defeated by that girl again? Fortunately, they were basically all experienced. Someone shouted, "Run," and the rest immediately fled like stray dogs. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared, leaving only the vast yellow sand. Phew, it's finally over. Cheng Menjing breathed a sigh of relief. If she had known that the opponent's magic weapon was so evil, she would have directly used her strongest strength to fight directly. That way, she wouldn't have been hit by her own trick for no reason, and she wouldn't have been exposed to the sun for so long, and her skin would have been tanned a lot. "Miss Cheng, I say, you should just kill that person directly, there's no point in keeping him." Xiaofan Giant Bull, who was not far away, saw that Cheng Menjing was planning to turn and leave, and poked its head out from under the tree and shouted loudly. "Beat your head." Cheng Menjing glared at the Xiaofan Giant Bull and snorted, "This lady won't do things like killing people. At most, I'll bring him back and let Patriarch Fan deal with him." After that, Cheng Menjing walked towards Jin Yuanfeng and reached out to pick him up and take him away. Anyway, Cheng Menjing still insisted that she didn't want to kill people casually. Since Jin Yuanfeng was seriously injured now, wouldn't it be the same to capture him and hand him over to Fan Yuqiao? Walking to Jin Yuanfeng's side, Cheng Menjing bent down to grab his ankle, but before she could touch Jin Yuanfeng's clothes, she suddenly felt her vision blur, and her nose smelled a strange fragrance. Then she lost consciousness, her body went limp, and she collapsed to the ground. Just as Cheng Menjing collapsed, a one-eyed old man dressed in black suddenly appeared beside her. He stared at the unconscious Cheng Menjing and Jin Yuanfeng as if he was thinking about something. "Miss Cheng." Xiaofan Giant Bull, who was not far away, saw this scene. It was so scared that it jumped up and shouted anxiously. Just as it was about to rush to save Cheng Menjing, it saw the one-eyed old man wearing an eye patch turn his head and glance at it. The old man's only eye exuded a frightening light, and Xiaofan Giant Bull, who was stared at, only felt a cold vibe like that of a poisonous snake lingering in its senses. Xiaofan Giant Bull immediately judged that its strength was far inferior to the one-eyed old man. It could only helplessly stop and stand in place, not knowing what to do. After the one-eyed old man glanced in the direction of Xiaofan Giant Bull with one eye, he seemed to have made a decision. He picked up Cheng Menjing and Jin Yuanfeng from the ground and quickly used his movement technique to leave, disappearing into the vast desert. The Xiaofan Giant Ox stood rooted to the ground, dumbfounded. The Fan family members were even more helpless. Their strength was inferior to the Xiaofan Giant Ox's. Seeing that Fairy Cheng had been easily taken down, they didn't dare to let their imaginations run wild. They could only look at the Xiaofan Giant Ox and obediently wait for its instructions. The Xiaofan Giant Bull and the Fan family stayed in the desert for a long time, but they still didn't see Cheng Menjing return. They could only return to the Fan family in confusion. Fan Yuqiao, who was standing at the door expectantly, was very happy to see everyone return safely. However, he soon discovered that Fairy Cheng had disappeared. After learning about the entire matter from the servants, he was also a little stunned. Could it be that there was another faction behind the bandits' leader? Did they find out that Fairy Cheng attacked the bandits, so they came to take her away? Although there were thousands of worries in his heart, Fan Yuqiao didn't dare to be disrespectful to Xishan Giant Bull. He still provided it with good food and drinks, asking about its well-being every day, for fear that he would not take good care of it. This was because Fan Yuqiao really couldn't determine if Fairy Cheng could subdue the black-robed man and successfully escape after being captured. Furthermore, although the Xishan giant ox's strength was average, it was still her grandfather. If Fairy Cheng returned and saw that her grandfather had been chased away, she would probably be unhappy. In addition, Fan Yuqiao tried to send goods to Ba Xian County a few more times and was pleasantly surprised to find that the bandits had been swept away. The entire road was unimpeded, and the Fan family's business returned to normal again. After learning of this news, Fan Yuqiao couldn't help but be ecstatic. He gave all the credit to Fairy Cheng and was even more diligent in providing for the Xishan Giant Bull. This was also a disguised form of repayment to Fairy Cheng. In any case, raising a person was really nothing to the Fan family. Although Fan Yuqiao didn't take this matter to heart, Xishan Giant Bull couldn't sit still in the Fan family. It often sat alone in the room, feeling very uncomfortable. Although Xishan Giant Bull enjoyed the fruits of others' labor, he naturally knew that Fan Yuqiao only took him in because of Cheng Menjiang. Fan Yuqiao treated him like a grandfather. Otherwise, with his insignificant foundation establishment cultivation, he wouldn't even be able to become an ordinary consecrator. He might have already been expelled from the Fan family. Exalted Immortal Xiao, where are you now? Now that your fiancé has been taken away by a stranger, I'm just a mere foundation establishment cultivator. I can't be of any use at all. You'd better appear quickly and help me. Xishan Giant Bull stared at the ceiling in a daze, wailing in his heart. Chapter 1428. On the other side of the world of cultivators, in the Burning Sky faction of the Luxian Prefecture. My husband Xiao Chen, why are your ears so red all of a sudden? Could it be that some woman is missing you? Hong Zhu, who was lying on Xiao Chen's shoulder, teased his burning ears, and teased him with a smile. Oh, maybe it's Menjiang and Tang Tang who are missing me. Xiao Chen didn't pay attention to Hong Zhu's dishonest hands, and continued to look at the map on the table with his head lowered. I think it's you who are missing them, right? Hong Zhu chuckled and looked down from Xiao Chen's shoulder. She asked curiously, my husband Xiao Chen, what are you looking at? You have been looking at this map for 2 or 3 days. Could it be that you still can't see anything? This is a map of the world of cultivators. I asked Duan Suqing for it. Xiao Chen's finger ran across the map. In the past few days, he had already memorized the geographical locations of the world of cultivators marked on the map. You mean, you are going to? Hong Zhu blinked and asked tentatively. Yes, it's time to leave. Xiao Chen put away the map and said with a serious expression, it has already been more than a month. The people from the Burning Sky faction have more or less swept through the small towns around the Luxian County. However, there is still no news of them. Therefore, I plan to leave this place in 2 days and go to the other counties to ask around. Otherwise, it is not a good idea to always stay here. Okay. I will go wherever you go. The world of cultivators is so big. I want to go with you. Hong Zhu was not surprised by Xiao Chen's plan at all. She nodded and agreed. Actually, Hong Zhu felt that living in the Burning Heavens faction was quite boring. Every day, apart from dual cultivating with Xiao Chen and drinking the medicinal soup he brewed to help her breakthrough, basically everything was taken care of by someone else. Every day, she had to stretch out her hands to get her clothes and open her mouth to eat. It was almost suffocating her to death. Do you think we are going to travel? What's so interesting about the world of cultivators? Xiao Chen knocked Hong Zhu's head and snapped. Aya, in any case, your disciple's junior brother has more or less recovered from his injuries, and we don't have any reason to continue staying in the Burning Heavens faction. Let's just treat it as a vacation that we can leave whenever we want. Hong Zhu rubbed his head in an unconcerned manner as he muttered to himself. What? What do you mean my disciple's junior brother? Xiaochen was taken aback at first, but after pondering for a moment, realization dawned on her. Not knowing whether to laugh or cry, she glared at Hongzhu and said, "My big sister Hongzhu, can't you speak properly? Their relationship is already weird enough, and you're still messing around. Don't you think it's not messy enough here?" Just as Hongzhu was about to retort, Gong Xiaoxi's anxious shout suddenly came from outside the door, "Master Exalted Immortal! Is it convenient for you to come out? This disciple has something to discuss with you." Hongzhu and Xiaochen looked at each other, both feeling somewhat puzzled, not understanding what Gong Xiaoxi was doing here in the middle of the night. Xiaochen shook his head, arranged the map, opened the door, and walked out with Hongzhu. "I say, little Gong, why do you always like to come and disturb your master at night? You're already so old, yet you're still so insensible." Hongzhu took the lead and walked up to Gong Xiaoxi, squinted at him, and curled his lips in annoyance. About that, master's wife, I've indeed run into a bit of trouble. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dared to come and look for you in the middle of the night, no matter how much courage I had." Gong Xiaoxi explained with a bitter face. "What happened? Could it be that there's something wrong with your father's body again?" Xiaochen pressed Hongzhu down and asked Gong Xiaoxi. Previously, when Xiaochen had given Gong Ruidong the dregs of the medicine, the latter's immune system had shown signs of slight rejection, causing him to vomit and have diarrhea for quite a while. It was only after taking several doses of medicine in succession that he gradually adapted to the effects. When this situation first occurred, Gong Xiaoxi was so scared that his soul nearly flew away. In the middle of the night, he ran to Xiaochen's room to ask for help, which made Hongzhu so angry that he wanted to die, and gave him a good scolding. After Xiaochen went to examine Gong Xiaoxi, he determined that this situation was due to the fierce medicinal strength of the medicine. Only then did Gong Xiaoxi feel relieved. No, my junior brother is fine this time. The problem lies with the mountain bandits near the Wuxia prefecture." Gong Xiaoxi hurriedly waved his hand and said angrily. "Mountain bandits? Are you referring to the group of bandits that you mentioned to me a few days ago?" Xiaochen raised his brows and asked in astonishment. As it turned out, the Wuxia prefecture was vast, and most of it was made up of forests and wastelands. In the mountain range surrounding the city, there had always been a group of mountain bandits who raided houses and robbed houses. Usually, they would burn, kill, and loot the belongings of the passing merchants for a living. Almost all the merchants in the Wuxia prefecture, big or small, had been robbed by them. When the mountain bandits were wreaking havoc, all the merchants in the Wuxia prefecture had suffered great losses. They closed their doors and refused to receive any customers. The entire market was on the verge of collapse. After that, they had no other choice but to seek help from the Burning Sky faction and the Tranquil Forest sect, hoping that the two largest sects in the prefecture would lend them a helping hand. The Tranquil Forest sect and the Burning Sky faction knew the big picture and sent out their disciples to serve as the merchants' guardians. They ruthlessly suppressed the mountain bandits' robberies, and only then did they curb their arrogant behavior, allowing the merchants to resume their normal trading activities. However, despite the suppression, the mountain bandits were still like grass that had grown out of the wastelands. With the spring wind, they grew again. They originally wanted to continue their previous behavior, but they realized that the merchants were already guarded by the guardians. After failing to rob the merchants' belongings several times, the mountain bandits became angry out of humiliation. They decided to vent their anger on the Burning Sky faction and the Tranquil Forest sect, who had taught them a lesson. Although they did not have the ability to fight against the two large sects, the mountain bandits had their own tricks. They displayed the principle of fighting if they could win, running if they could not win. They played guerrilla warfare with the Burning Sky faction and the Tranquil Forest sect, harassing them from time to time. They deliberately wanted to annoy the two sects to death. The Tranquil Forest sect was located in the wasteland, and the surrounding area was heavily guarded. The mountain bandits had probed a few times, but they realized that there was no advantage to be gained. Instead, there were more situations where both sides were injured, and the number of times they launched sneak attacks was also reduced. However, the Burning Sky faction was different. Their faction was located on a mountain peak, and it was originally the main peak of a mountain range. As the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered there, the back mountain was filled with natural treasures. They were usually used for their own use or sold, and it was also considered as their main source of income. However, the mountain bandits somehow discovered those natural treasures. It was as if they had discovered a new continent, and they would come to rob them from time to time. Duan Suqing tried to set up various protective barriers in the back mountain, but it was still to no avail. It seemed that there were people among the mountain bandits who knew how to deal with it. No matter what kind of barrier he set up, it would still be destroyed by the mountain bandits. Hence, there were many conflicts between the two parties. Chapter 1429. Moreover, the Burning Sky faction was located in a mountain range, and the nearby terrain was more complicated. The bandits were best at robbing and then leaving, completely not entangled with the disciples of the Burning Sky faction, so the sect could not do anything to them. Both sides would occasionally break out into large-scale conflicts, but the strength of the bandits was not weak, so after a fight, both sides basically suffered losses, and the Burning Sky faction had no way to restrain them. The bandits were addicted to robbing, and from time to time came to harass them. The Burning Sky faction felt that there was always a fly buzzing behind them, but they could not kill it, and it was extremely uncomfortable. A few days ago, when Gong Xiaoxi was chatting with Xiao Chen, they had talked about this matter. At that time, Xiao Chen had asked if he needed to take action, but Gong Xiaoxi felt that the strength of those bandits was ordinary, and it was really not worth for his exalted immortal master to take action personally, so he did not immediately agree, and Xiao Chen did not take it to heart. Unexpectedly, today, Gong Xiaoxi came to talk about this matter in the middle of the night. Could it be that something changed with these bandits? It's that group of people. Gong Xiaoxi frowned, and said angrily, "Today, they came to rob our sect's heaven and earth treasures again, and this time they brought an expert, who killed many disciples of the Burning Sky faction during the battle with us. They are simply abominable. So I want to ask Exalted Immortal Master to take action and teach those bandits a lesson, to help the dead disciples vent their anger." "I see. What is the level of that expert?" Xiao Chen nodded in understanding, and continued to ask. "I am not too sure about this." Gong Xiaoxi shook his head, and sighed helplessly. "At that time, I was taking care of my father and Junior, so I did not have time to go over, and when I heard the news, they had already run away." Xiao Chen pondered for a while, and asked another question, "Then do you know, where is the nest of those bandits?" Xiao Chen planned to eradicate all the bandits in one go, or else after a few days, when he left the Burning Sky faction, he might not have the chance to help them again. We've tried to track their tracks before, but these bandits ran away after robbing them. We couldn't find where they were hiding at all." Gong Xiaoxi stomped his feet in annoyance. Suddenly, he thought of something and added, "That's right, according to the injured disciples, their most powerful leader might be at the original infant stage. How about this? Take me to the back of the mountain to have a look. Maybe I can find some clues left behind by the bandits. If we follow the clues to their lair, we can catch them all in one fell swoop." Xiao Chen said decisively when he saw that he couldn't get anything out of him. All right. I'll listen to Exalted Master." Gong Xiaoxi hurriedly agreed. He felt that the clues that ordinary disciples could not find might really be discovered by Exalted Immortal Xiao. Xiao Chen thought for a moment, then turned to Hongzhu and said, "You stay in the room. Gong Xiaoxi and I will come back after dealing with the bandits." "No, I want to go too." Hongzhu rejected Xiao Chen's suggestion. She waved her little fist excitedly and said, "I want to help you teach those bandits a lesson. In any case, Big Sister is already at the second level of the Golden Core stage. Although it might be a little difficult to deal with original infant stage cultivators, it shouldn't be a problem for me to deal with those small fries. I also want to test out my own strength. After a month of drinking medicine and dual cultivating, Hongzhu's strength had indeed increased a lot compared to before, so she was very eager to give it a try. Alright, then follow me. No matter what happens, don't leave my sight. Xiaochen couldn't change Hongzhu's mind, so he could only nod his head helplessly. Exalted Immortal Master, should I find some more helpers? Gong Xiaoxi respectfully asked. After all, the other party has the advantage in numbers. If we really fight, the three of us might not be able to gain much of an advantage. Gong Xiaoxi was actually not at all worried that Exalted Immortal Xiao would not be able to defeat the bandits. He just felt that it was easier to do things with more people. Besides, Exalted Immortal Xiao was only here as a guest, so he couldn't deal with all of them. As long as he could kill the strongest leader, it would be fine. There's no need, 3 people is enough. Xiaochen waved his hand, then pulled Hongzhu towards the back of the mountain. Seeing this, Gong Xiaoxi had no choice but to follow. Since Exalted Immortal Xiao was so confident, there was no need for him to make a big fuss. Moreover, the bandits came and went like the wind tonight. Whether they could successfully find their hiding place was still a problem. Even if more people went, there was not much meaning. Walking to the place where the Burning Sky faction planted their heavenly treasures, Xiaochen carefully inspected the scene. Other than the footprints left behind by the bandits when they escaped, there were no other valuable clues. Xiaochen led Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi into the mountains, following the footprints left behind. However, after walking for a few miles, the deep and shallow footprints suddenly disappeared. It could be seen that the bandits were already prepared and had already erased all the clues. Looking around at the pitch-black darkness around him, Gong Xiaoxi suddenly felt a little helpless. Exalted Immortal Master, these bandits are all experienced. Last time, our sect's disciples also chased them to this area, and the trail was cut off. Later on, we deliberately expanded the search area, but we still found nothing. Helplessly taking 2 steps forward, Gong Xiaoxi asked Xiaochen for help. What do you think we should do next? Wait, let me use my divine sense to check the situation first. Xiaochen waved his hand, and then released his divine sense to envelop the entire back mountain. He carefully checked every corner, not letting go of any clues. Previously, when leaving the inner martial world, when they needed to open the portal, Xiaochen had endured the heavenly tribulation together with the girls. At that time, because of Ke Lin's cowering, he suffered most of the damage, and also shared the pressure of the other girls. Fortunately, there was no danger, and in the end, they survived the disaster safely. As the saying goes, one who survives a great disaster is bound to have good fortune later on. After Xiaochen finished enduring the heavenly tribulation, he felt that he had broken through several levels in succession. The yuan qi in his body was surging, as if he had endless power. After entering the immortal cultivation world, from time to time, Xiaochen would find time to dual cultivate with Hongzhu, consolidating his cultivation, which was a blessing in disguise. Finally, his strength stabilized at the 7th level of the profound ascension stage, which was why he could release such a large range of divine sense at this moment, covering the entire back mountain. Feeling an extremely huge and unfathomable divine sense spiritual power spreading out, Gong Xiaoxi couldn't help but be secretly surprised. He quietly took a step back, and asked Hongzhu in a low voice, "Master's wife, what is my master's current strength?" Chapter 1430. Why do you suddenly ask? Didn't he tell you before? Hongzhu glanced at Xiaochen. She could vaguely feel a vast and majestic power radiating from Xiaochen's body, but she also couldn't figure out what realm it belonged to. Didn't you feel it just now? Master's divine sense is simply too exaggerated, even my father's junior brother can't do it. Gong Xiaoxi's face was full of admiration as he looked at Xiaochen's back with worship and murmured, could it be that master has already broken through the shackles of the profound ascension stage and become an even more powerful master? Oh! What stage is the profound ascension stage? Hongzhu blinked her eyes and asked curiously. Previously, Xiaochen didn't completely explain the entire cultivation system to her, so the profound ascension stage was still a new term to her. The profound ascension stage is the next stage after the nascent soul stage. Gong Xiaoxi smacked his lips and said with emotion, I originally thought that my father's junior brother was already a very powerful existence, and that only that old fellow from the Tranquil Forest sect could surpass him. I didn't expect Master to be so much stronger than him. I've really opened my eyes today. Hearing Gong Xiaoxi's words, Hongzhu felt very satisfied. She puffed out her chest and said with a proud smile, Little Gong, why do you think big sister? Master's wife, I, would fall for your master? Isn't it because he's very powerful? I say you should learn a little more in the future, as long as you can learn a little bit of your master's skills, and practice hard for a few years, you might even surpass him. No, 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 master's wife, you're too kind to me. Gong Xiaoxi waved his hands repeatedly and said with a bitter smile, I don't dare to think like that. Right now, disciple's biggest goal is to surpass my father's junior brother and become the #1 expert of the Burning Heaven sect. As for what master's wife said, I'm afraid I won't be able to do it in this lifetime. You're really useless, satisfied with a mere nascent soul stage. Don't tell others that I'm your wife when you go out. Hongzhu rolled her eyes and scolded in a bad mood. However, Hongzhu was very clear in his heart that Gong Xiaoxi had been stuck in the gold core stage for a very long time and had only managed to step into the nascent soul stage with the help of Xiaochen. At his age, if he could still cultivate to the peak of the nascent soul stage, that would already be a very outstanding achievement. Gong Xiaoxi smiled embarrassedly. He knew that Hongzhu, his master's wife, loved to joke around, so he did not take her rebuke to heart. Instead, he stood obediently to one side, silently waiting for Xiaochen's instructions after he was done with his investigation. After a while, Xiaochen retracted his divine sense and said in a deep voice, halfway up the mountain, some grass and trees have been crushed. It seems to be man-made. I think the bandits may have fled there. Let's go there and take a look. We should be able to find some new traces. Although Xiaochen had heard Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi's discussion just now, he did not pay too much attention to it and directly rushed to the mountainside, with Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi closely following behind him. Not long after, the three of them reached the mountainside. Following the direction of his divine sense, Xiaochen directly arrived near a thicket. After carefully observing for a while, the three of them discovered that not only were the plants growing here abnormally dense, they were basically as tall as a person. Even Xiaochen, who was close to 1.9 meters tall, would be buried in the thicket if he walked in. But at this time, Xiaochen had no other choice but to urge Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi to follow closely behind him and not run around looking around. Then, he carefully approached the thicket. While exploring, he also had to be on guard against any wild beasts in the surroundings, and at the same time, ensure everyone's safety. Clatter. After walking for a few hundred meters, Xiaochen suddenly felt as if he had stepped on something. The sound of metal colliding could be heard. It was especially loud in the silent night. Coupled with the atmosphere of the deep mountain forest, it almost gave Gong Xiaoxi a fright. Xiaochen, on the other hand, was not frightened. Instead, he carefully withdrew his foot and squatted down. He reached out his hand and felt around for a while, until his fingertips touched a steel chain. What's this? Xiaochen gripped the chain tightly and pulled it upwards. Following Xiaochen's tug, on the grassy ground not too far away, a thick steel plate was suddenly lifted up at the end of the chain. A secret passage glowing faintly appeared in front of the three of them. Holy shit, I was wondering why I couldn't find any traces of those bandits. It turns out that they've all hidden themselves in this secret passage. What a good plan. Let's see if I don't catch you like a turtle in a jar today. Gong Xiaoxi cursed as he walked over. Then, he stuck his head into the secret passage to take a look. After confirming that it was just an ordinary secret passage and that there was no danger, he jumped down first. Hongzhu had wanted to jump down after Gong Xiaoxi, but Xiao Chen stopped her. "I'll go down first. You can come down after I've checked that there's no problem." "Is that so?" "All right." At first, Hongzhu was somewhat displeased. However, after thinking for a moment, she suddenly smiled like a flower and agreed. Seeing this, Xiao Chen was baffled. He did not know what this little girl was up to again. After jumping into the secret passage with Gong Xiaoxi, Xiao Chen sized up his surroundings and released his divine sense to do a thorough check. He discovered that there were indeed no traps. The bandits probably thought that this secret passage was well hidden and that there was no need for any other defensive measures. After confirming that there were no mistakes, Xiao Chen shouted towards the entrance of the cave, "Little Hongzhu, you can come down now. I'll wait for you down there." "Oh, got it." Hongzhu stood on top of it and gave a sweet reply. Then, she aimed at where Xiao Chen was standing and pounced towards him, directly crashing into Xiao Chen's bosom. Then, she clung onto him and refused to come out. She even had a smile on her face as if her prank had succeeded. Xiao Chen was already prepared and did not stumble when Hongzhu bumped into him. However, his heart still palpitated when he felt the warm and fragrant body in his embrace. Thinking about the way this little girl rolled her eyes and came up with wicked ideas, Xiao Chen could not help but smile helplessly. He raised his hand and lightly tapped Hongzhu's head, whispering, "You did that on purpose, didn't you? Stop messing around. Can't you see what kind of environment you're in? Hee, Xiao Chong husband, don't you feel very comfortable? Don't you want to hug me a little longer?" Hongzhu hid in Xiao Chen's embrace and giggled mischievously. She purposely rubbed against his chest a few times before reluctantly leaving his embrace. Master's wife, you two are openly showing off your affection. Have you ever considered the feelings of your disciple?" Gong Xiaoxi had an envious expression on his face as he watched Xiao Chen and Hongzhu flirt with each other. He could not help but feel a deep sense of loss in his heart. Chapter 1431. Gong Xiaoxi thought to himself, "I've spent most of my life trying to make breakthroughs in cultivation, and I haven't even had the time to find a partner. But this guy, not only is he so much stronger than me, he hasn't even missed the task of finding a wife. Why is there such a huge gap between us? All right, there's no point in torturing a single dog. Let's hurry up and take care of the bandits." Hongzhu simply took Xiao Chen's hand, and the two of them walked into the depths of the secret passageway. When they passed by Gong Xiaoxi, she even playfully raised her eyebrows and made a funny face at him. Gong Xiaoxi rubbed his nose gloomily, thinking, "If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have come along. If we were to fight with the bandits, Immortal Master would definitely prioritize protecting Master's wife, while I, a disciple who has no one to love and care for, can only do my best to protect myself." Sigh. Relying on Xiao Chen's powerful divine sense to explore the way, the trio smoothly traversed the complicated secret passage without encountering any obstacles. After walking for about an hour, they arrived at the exit of the secret passage. The exit was blocked by a large door, probably to prevent outsiders from entering from the secret passage, so the entire steel-cast door was locked from the other side. Xiao Chen first reached out to push the door, but found that it didn't budge at all. He then gave Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi a meaningful look, indicating that they should move to the side. When the two of them had moved to a safe distance, Xiao Chen began to circulate his mental cultivation method, gathering the rich yuan qi in his body into his palm, and immediately slammed it against the door. Boom! A huge explosion suddenly resounded in the secret passage as the door was directly sent flying by Xiao Chen. Fresh air immediately rushed in from the outside, sweeping away the unpleasant earthy smell in the secret passage. Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi put down their hands that were covering their ears, then took deep breaths, as if they had been holding their breath for too long. What's going on? Where did that explosion come from? It seems like someone has broken in from the secret passage. Everyone, quickly go and see what's going on. In the bandit lair, a group of men who happened to be patrolling nearby heard the noise and immediately rushed to the exit of the secret passage. One of them even blew a horn, obviously to inform the other bandits to come and help. Walking through the gate, Gong Xiaoxi couldn't help but click his tongue in amazement as he looked at the houses that were arranged in picturesque disorder. The scale of this place was much larger than the Burning Sky faction, and it looked extremely magnificent and majestic. Motherf ****, there's actually such a luxurious courtyard hidden in this crooked place. Gong Xiaoxi sighed from the bottom of his heart. It seems like the mountain bandits have robbed quite a number of things from our Luxian prefecture. Otherwise, it would be impossible for them to have so many spiritual crystals to build such a long secret tunnel and such a huge courtyard. Seeing two men and a woman suddenly appear in the secret passage, the bandit squad leader who had rushed over with the patrol team was immediately shocked. His eyes widened as he pointed at Xiao Chen's group and cursed, "Who are you people? How dare you come here and behave atrociously? Are you tired of living? Oh, I am a great deity invited by the Burning Sky faction. I heard that some small bandits are not very clean and have stolen the treasures that they have painstakingly cultivated, so they sent me over to take a look." Xiao Chen looked at the bandit indifferently and said sarcastically, "I didn't expect you to be just a group of mobs who are good at hiding in the dark. Ha ha ha. You are just a skinny lad, and you have the nerve to call yourself a great deity? Who gave you the courage?" The squad leader sized up Xiao Chen and did not take him seriously at all. He laughed sarcastically. "I don't have time to argue with you." Xiao Chen crossed his arms in front of his chest and said coldly, "Just call out your most powerful expert. I don't intend to deal with other people, I just want to deal with him." "Oh, you are just a small fry and you want to go against our leader? Why don't you go to heaven?" The squad leader rolled his eyes and said while pinching his nose. "Oh, since you want to see me go to heaven, then I will do as you wish." Xiao Chen could not be bothered to talk to this guy anymore. He directly took out his flying sword and jumped on it. Then, he flew into the air and looked around. After getting a clear look at the layout of the bandit lair, Xiao Chen casually sent a palm strike towards the group of bandits who were staring at him dumbfoundedly. Then, riding on his flying sword, he summoned the fire of the underworld and commanded it to light up a few rather conspicuous houses. The patrol team on the ground was originally dumbfounded. They were thinking about how to deal with Xiao Chen who was flying in the sky. Suddenly, they saw him waving his hand lightly. Then, a wave of terrifying pressure came towards them. Everyone's expressions changed greatly. A few of them who had faster reactions hurriedly scrambled to escape. The rest who had not reacted in time were all sent flying by the powerful force. Their bodies smashed heavily into a nearby mountain wall. Blood flowed out of their orifices and they died instantly. Gong Xiaoxi's eyes involuntarily revealed a look of admiration as he watched Xiao Chen fly in the air on his flying sword. His clothes fluttered in the wind as he guided a ball of strange-colored flames to attack wherever he pointed. In an instant, he had destroyed more than half of the bandits' lair. Gong Xiaoxi had never seen such a superb magic weapon. Whether it was the flying sword or the fire of the underworld, any one of them shocked him from the bottom of his heart. At this time, Gong Xiaoxi had already begun to imagine that as his master, if exalted immortal Xiao could give him one of these magic weapons in the future, then he would truly have no regrets in this life. On the other hand, Hongzhu's expression was calm and emotionless. She had seen Xiao Chen's weapon several times, so she did not find it too strange. Currently, Hongzhu's gaze was scanning the ground, trying to find a few lone bandits to test out her golden core stage strength. However, from the looks of it, she did not have much of a chance. The flames in the few houses that Xiao Chen had set alight were growing larger and larger. The bandits inside could not stand the thick smoke and continuously ran out of the houses. Some of the bandits who were too slow were accidentally splashed by the sparks. Several large holes were instantly burned into their clothes. Furthermore, there was no way to extinguish the fire. Their entire bodies were gradually engulfed by the fire. They lay on the ground and rolled around in pain, wailing incessantly. For a moment, the entire bandit lair was filled with thick smoke and the scene was incomparably chaotic. "You yellow-haired thief, hurry up and stop." Just as Xiaofan was calmly observing the situation from above, he heard an old and deep roar suddenly ring out. An old man dressed in light yellow robes shot out from one of the rooms in the corner of the courtyard and charged straight at Xiaofan. "Oh! You've finally called out the master." Xiaofan raised his brows slightly. He stood on his flying sword as steady as Mount Tai, waiting for the yellow-robed old man to approach. Chapter 1432. When the yellow-robed old man gradually approached Xiaofan, he suddenly took out an iron horsetail whisk and flung it at Xiaofan. Then, with a somersault, he landed firmly on the ground. "Xiaofan, husband, be careful." "Master, be careful." Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi cried out in alarm, fearing that Xiaofan would be caught off guard and fall into this fellow's trap. Xiaofan naturally did not take this sudden attack seriously. He controlled his flying sword and made a beautiful dodge, easily dodging the iron horsetail whisk's attack. After circling in the air for a while, Xiaofan seemed to sense something and turned his head to look. He discovered that the iron horsetail whisk had turned around and continued to closely follow him, showing no signs of slowing down. Xiaofan tried to dodge left and right for a while, but discovered that the iron horsetail whisk seemed to have a tracking device attached to it. It kept on following him and refused to let go. Xiaofan suddenly had an idea. He simply stepped on his flying sword and swooped down towards the yellow-robed old man standing on the ground. "Humph! Insignificant skill, you overestimate yourself." The yellow-robed old man was originally squinting at the sky, but when he saw this, his pupils suddenly shrank. He instantly revealed his peak nascent soul cultivation, clenched his fist, and smashed it towards Xiaofan's face. Xiaofan's eyes flashed and he revealed a look of understanding. He seized the opportunity and jumped down from his flying sword, standing in front of Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi. The iron horsetail whisk was momentarily unable to keep up with Xiaofan's rhythm and charged towards the yellow-robed old man. Xiaofan naturally had his own reasons for doing this. By returning the battlefield to the ground, he would have enough attention to protect Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi from being accidentally injured. Secondly, he could seize the opportunity to avoid the yellow-robed old man's pincer attack. The yellow-robed old man was naturally not afraid of the iron horsetail whisk. His outstretched hand turned into a claw and directly grabbed his weapon. He then stared at Xiaofan and sinisterly said, "Brat, I didn't expect you to have some ability. Of course, my exalted immortal master's strength is not something you can handle." When Gong Xiaoxi saw that Xiaofan had perfectly dodged the bandit leader's attack, he couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and shout proudly, "Hurry up and surrender, otherwise don't blame us for being impolite." The yellow-robed old man swept his eyes over the two men and one woman in front of him. A glint flashed across his eyes as he said unhurriedly, "You are all from the Burning Sky faction, right? We've been fighting back and forth for so many years, and I've only robbed you of some heavenly materials and earthly treasures. We've always lived in harmony, so why did you suddenly come and destroy the courtyard that I've painstakingly built? You snatched someone else's things, yet you still have the face to say such words. You really don't know your place." Hongzhu snorted and smartly retorted. "Exactly. You stole our natural treasures, destroyed our barrier, and killed our disciples. How could such a deep hatred be described as peaceful coexistence? How shameless." Gong Xiaoxi also chimed in. The yellow-robed old man's face immediately darkened. A dignified aura emanated from his body as he said fiercely, "Very well. Since you insist on exterminating us this time, then don't blame this old man for being impolite. Today, either you die, or I die." It turned out that this yellow-robed old man was the leader of this group of bandits. His name was Wei Shizhong. Usually, when the bandits raided homes, he was the one holding the line. If anything happened, he would take action to suppress the situation. In fact, Wei Shizhong didn't want to be enemies with the Burning Sky faction. After all, not only did this group of bandits usually have to deal with the Burning Sky faction, they also had to rob the Tranquil Forest sect from time to time. Therefore, the other party was also eyeing them covetously. If he didn't do his job well, he wouldn't be able to snatch anything if he went easy on them, and if he went heavy on them, he would provoke the two sects and draw out the old ancestors and old monsters behind them. Then, he would be in big trouble. Therefore, on normal days, Wei Shizhong's principle was to snatch whenever there was a chance, run after snatching, and avoid fighting if possible. On the basis of preserving his greatest strength, he would try his best to snatch as many resources as possible. Actually, Wei Shizhong didn't expect that the Burning Heaven faction would find their way into his old nest. The reason why he said that was because he planned to borrow his pressure to scare the Burning Heaven faction and make them retreat in the face of difficulties. After these few people retreated out of fear, the Burning Sky faction would only dare to close one eye the next time they went to steal heaven and earth treasures, allowing them to snatch those heaven and earth treasures. Then, both sides would be able to reach a balance again in the future. Feeling the pressure from the yellow-robed old man, Xiaofan sized him up and nodded in satisfaction, as expected of a nascent soul perfection expert. But unfortunately, the speed of your punches is too slow. You might not even be able to hit a fly. Exalted Master, this old man is actually a nascent soul perfection expert? Looks like you're in luck today. When Gong Xiaoxi heard what Xiaofan said, he couldn't help but blurt out in surprise. Previously, Gong Xiaoxi heard that the bandit leader's strength was very high. He estimated that he was at least in the nascent soul stage, but he didn't expect that he had actually reached the nascent soul perfection realm. Hehe, are you afraid? This old man is indeed in the nascent soul perfection realm, this is absolutely not a lie. If you are afraid, this old man can give you a chance, hurry up and scram. Otherwise, next year today will be the day of your death. Wei Shizhong thought that his pressure was effective, so he put on an imposing manner and shouted. Thinking that he had scared off the Burning Sky faction's invasion, Wei Shizhong couldn't help but feel a little smug in his heart. In the future, they could go to the Burning Sky faction to steal herbs without fear. Just thinking about it was really satisfying. This is really great, Exalted Master, you can finally fulfill your wish. Gong Xiaoxi was surprised and happy as he slapped his thigh and laughed. Xiaofan shrugged his shoulders and glanced at Gong Xiaoxi. He said indifferently, look at you, why are you so excited? Isn't it just a nascent soul perfection realm? Look at your inexperienced look. Won't you be laughed at if word of this gets out? You're really useless. Kid, you're actually his master at such a young age? And an exalted immortal? Wei Shizhong looked at Xiaofan with a strange expression and asked in surprise. Old man, listen carefully. Exalted Immortal Xiao is my master. My master is the real Exalted Immortal. Gong Xiaoxi straightened his chest and answered with a face full of pride. When he heard Gong Xiaoxi say this, Wei Shizhong turned to look at him and snorted disdainfully, Exalted Immortal? It seems that the master you've acknowledged is also useless. Could it be that his wish is to see a nascent soul perfection realm expert in his lifetime? This kind of thing is worthy of being called an Exalted Immortal? He's simply a disgrace to the title of Exalted Immortal. Chapter 1433. Old fart, don't be so stupid. My upper immortal master has no interest in a low-level cultivator like you. He's just lonely as an expert and wants to find someone who's passable to test his moves. At the same time, let me see how a cultivator at the peak of the nascent soul stage is killed. Gong Xiaoxi raised his chin and shouted. What did you say? Wei Shizhong was still immersed in the thrill of scaring off his opponent. When he heard Gong Xiaoxi's words, he could not react and asked subconsciously. My master wants to kill a full-circle nascent soul stage cultivator. We've been waiting for this wish for a long time. Now that you've appeared, we're so happy. Gong Xiaoxi was not afraid at all. He repeated his words again, then shook his legs and laughed coldly. How dare you? How dare you make fun of me? I'll send you on your way first. Wei Shizhong realized that he had been fooled. He was so angry that he trembled. He stared at Gong Xiaoxi and roared. As soon as he finished speaking, Wei Shizhong immediately injected primordial qi into every thread of the iron horsetail whisk in his hand. Then, he raised his palm slightly. The threads were like sharp thorns. They suddenly stood up and shot straight at Gong Xiaoxi. Gong Xiaoxi was shocked. His sneer stopped abruptly and he retreated. Just as he was about to call for his immortal master to save him, he saw Xiao Chen suddenly move. What kind of stupid magic weapon is this? It's more like it's used to drive away mosquitoes. You actually have the nerve to take it out to show off. Don't you have any decent magic weapons on you? As Xiao Chen sneered, he stretched out his hand and easily caught the threads that flew past him. Then, he exerted some strength in his wrist and snatched the entire iron horsetail whisk into his hand. Seeing this, Wei Shizhong's expression could not help but sink. Xiao Chen's attack speed was indeed astonishing. However, when he stared at the iron horsetail whisk that Xiao Chen had snatched away, a trace of hidden joy suddenly flashed in his eyes. Ha ha ha, Immortal Master is really powerful. Gong Xiaoxi's expression immediately changed from fear to excitement. He said excitedly, "It's a pity that my father and junior fellow apprentice are not here now. If he could see with his own eyes that you could kill a cultivator at the peak of Yuanying realm, his life would not be in vain. I say, disciple, can't you speak properly? You either call him father or junior brother. If others hear you calling him father and junior brother, they will think that something is wrong. In any case, he gave birth to you and brought you up, can't you respect him a little?" Hongzhu rolled his eyes at Gong Xiaoxi and said snappily. Every time he heard Gong Xiaoxi say this, Hongzhu would feel particularly awkward. They were clearly father and son, yet they kept addressing each other as senior brother and junior brother. "Hey, old fart, don't tell me that's all you've got." Xiao Chen waved the iron horsetail whisk in his hand and said coldly, "Hurry up and show me what you're good at. This young master doesn't have the time to waste with you. In any case, you won't be able to live today, so you might as well take out your trump card and let me broaden my horizons." Wei Shizhong was also confused by Gong Xiaoxi's chaotic relationship. At this time, when he heard Xiao Chen's urging, he quickly regained his wits and said with a strange and evil smile, "Trump card? Isn't it in your hand? You have the nerve to call this fly swatter your trump card?" Xiao Chen waved his hand disdainfully. Halfway through his sentence, he felt as if his finger had been entangled by something. Looking down in astonishment, Xiao Chen discovered that the thing that had taken the initiative to entangle his finger was the silk thread that he had been tightly gripping. Just as Xiao Chen was slightly stunned, the silk thread on the iron horsetail whisk suddenly seemed to have a life of its own. It began to grow and extend continuously. Soon, it wrapped around Xiao Chen's hands and feet, and then tightly tied him up, not allowing him to move. There were even a few silk threads that had spread up Xiao Chen's chest and strangled his neck. Wei Shizhong saw that his magical instrument had begun to work, and he couldn't help but laugh up to the sky. He mocked mercilessly, "Brat, at least you're called an immortal by your disciple. How can you be bound by this little thing? I think you're just a so-so. You don't seem to be that great. What the hell is this? And Xiaoma, what are you waiting for? Hurry up, cut off the silk thread." Xiao Chen tried to struggle a few times, but found that it was impossible to break free with human strength. Instead, it was getting tighter and tighter. He had to give an order to Xiaoma with difficulty. "Yes, Master." And Xiaoma was originally floating in the air, waiting for Xiao Chen to summon again. When she heard the order, she immediately responded and swooped down toward Xiao Chen. When she rushed in front of Xiao Chen, Xiaoma manipulated the flying sword and carefully slashed at the silk thread of the iron horsetail whisk. However, after slashing several times in succession, she couldn't cut off the silk thread that was getting more and more entangled. Instead, a small crack appeared on the body of the flying sword, which made Xiaochen feel pain. TSK, you actually have this kind of magical instrument at such a young age. You must have encountered some great luck, so you have the guts to call yourself an immortal, right? Wei Shizhong looked at the flying sword that moved on its own, curled his lips, and sighed. Cut the crap, let go of my immortal master. My master still has many magical instruments and tricks. I can let you experience them one by one. I guarantee that you've never seen them in your life. Gong Xiaoxi hid behind Xiaochen and shouted at Wei Shizhong. You want to provoke me to let go? Don't waste your efforts. Wei Shizhong sneered and looked at Xiaochen, who was still struggling in vain. He said lightly, those horsetail whisk threads are made of the mane of ancient spiritual beasts. They are extremely precious. Although your flying sword looks very magical, it's simply a pipe dream to think that you can cut my horsetail whisk threads with this ordinary weapon. Xiaochen actually did not have any fear. Although he felt a little suffocated, he still looked down at the silk thread that tied him with great interest. He found that these strands of silk thread were shiny and oily. Although they looked soft and entangled, they were very tough when they were wrapped around the body. The flying sword could not cut them, which also proved that these silk threads were very hard. They were indeed like the mane of an animal, such as the quills on a porcupine. Wei Shizhong waited for a while, but he didn't see any reaction from Xiaochen. He couldn't help but feel a little angry. A faint layer of primordial qi appeared on his body. He snorted and said, "Kid, do you think it's over? Today, this old man will let you enjoy some more exciting things. I'll make your trip worthwhile." When Xiaochen heard this, he looked up in surprise. He saw that Wei Shizhong was making a few hand gestures back and forth, and then his mouth was murmuring. The primordial qi on his body was constantly increasing. Chapter 1434. After looking for a while and not finding any clues, Xiaochen was puzzled. Suddenly, a familiar blue light flashed under his eyelids. Looking down, Xiaochen found that the iron horsetail whisk in his hand seemed to have some kind of reaction. Several blue lights gradually appeared on the handle and quickly spread toward the silk thread. Xiaochen was alarmed. This color, this light, why is it so familiar? I seem to have seen it before. Before Xiaochen could recall what this blue light was, he felt his whole body suddenly convulse, as if he had been electrocuted, and all his muscles tightened together. Xiaochen hurriedly operated the yuan qi in his body to resist, and then could not help but secretly roll his eyes. He thought to himself, it seems that I must have offended the god of thunder and goddess of lightning in my previous life, so I am often tortured by thunder and lightning in this life. This kind of familiar tingling and numbness, if it is not a lightning strike, then what is it? However, what surprised Xiaochen was that his strength was obviously higher than that old man's, but he could not break free from the silk thread that was wrapped around his body. What is going on? Isn't this a little too strange? How can I get out of this predicament? Xiaochen thought to himself as he felt the numbness from the electricity coursing through his body. Seeing Xiaochen being electrocuted from time to time, the corners of his mouth involuntarily twitching, Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi, who were originally very confident, had their complexions changed. Hongzhu was a little better, but Gong Xiaoxi's forehead had begun to break out in a cold sweat. He thought to himself, could it be that his immortal master is going to fall under this guy's strange trick? Both of them wanted to help Xiaochen, but their cultivation was too low. Even if they went up, they were no match for Wei Shizhong. If they went up, they would only die in vain. They could only watch helplessly as the iron horsetail whisk tightly wrapped around Xiaochen's body. They could only watch helplessly from the side, but there was nothing they could do. Wei Shizhong observed for a while and saw that Xiaochen really couldn't break free from his iron horsetail whisk. He was secretly happy, but he coughed and pretended to be indifferent. Originally, this old man didn't want to kill anyone today, but since you don't know what's good for you, this old man has no choice but to keep you here. Take this as a lesson to the Burning Sky faction, and let them know that in the future, don't think of ways to go against us." After he finished speaking, Wei Shizhong clenched his fists and circulated his yuan qi. With a slight movement of his body, he instantly appeared in front of Xiao Chen. Then, he raised his arm and smashed down fiercely at Xiao Chen's head. At this moment, Xiao Chen's mind flashed like a spark. He shouted in his sea of consciousness, "Nethery." Following Xiao Chen's shout, the flame of the underworld appeared in the air with a whoosh. Without needing any orders from Xiao Chen, it immediately rushed towards the iron horsetail whisk. Before Wei Shizhong's attack could reach it, it had already touched the horsetail whisk's silk. A bluish-purple flame surged back and forth, and very quickly, the entire iron horsetail whisk was swallowed up. Even the horsetail whisk's handle and silk were completely burned. Moreover, it didn't cause any harm to Xiao Chen. Not even a corner of his clothes was burned. The corner of Xiao Chen's mouth slightly curved, and he thought that it was as expected. Although the silk of this horsetail whisk was made from the mane of an ancient spirit beast and was extremely tough, even the flying sword that he refined couldn't cut it. What was the flame of the underworld? It was a heavenly flame that came from hell, and it was even more powerful than the Samadhi true fire. Between the mane of a spirit beast in the world and the heavenly flame from the abyss, who was stronger and who was weaker, just by thinking with one's toes, one would know. Therefore, the outcome of the battle was decided in an instant. What's going on? Wei Shizhong, who had just rushed in front of Xiao Chen, happened to see this scene. He couldn't help but turn pale with fright. Obviously, he was shocked by the sudden appearance of the flame of the underworld, and even his whole body slightly paused for a moment. Although there was a short pause, Wei Shizhong was already very close to Xiao Chen at this time. Therefore, after only a moment of hesitation, Wei Shizhong still rushed forward with the help of inertia. Seeing that Xiao Chen seemed to have no time to react, Wei Shizhong secretly sneered and swung his fist with greater strength. Seeing that his fist was about to kill Xiao Chen, Wei Shizhong's heart was already calm, and his face also showed a proud expression. However, the next moment, his facial expression stiffened and distorted. This was because after Wei Shizhong's fist smashed down, he felt as if he had smashed into the air. In front of him, Xiao Chen's body suddenly disappeared into thin air, leaving only an afterimage. As the wind of the fist followed, the afterimage also drifted away without a trace. Wei Shizhong, who had smashed the air with his fist, felt that the blood in his chest was a little stagnant. He seized the time to adjust his breath, and at the same time, he wanted to see where Xiao Chen was hiding. Wei Shizhong first glanced forward and found that there was no trace of Xiao Chen at all. Just as he was feeling puzzled, he glanced at the right side of his body from the corner of his eye, and there was a strong black aura sweeping over. Along with the black aura, a cold and ruthless voice followed, "Old thing, the game is over, eat my dark flame palm." The person who came was Xiao Chen, and the dark flame palm was also a martial skill he learned at the beginning of cultivation. After dodging Wei Shizhong's attack with extremely fast movements, Xiao Chen was about to launch a sneak attack. Suddenly, an idea came to his mind. He wanted to try the dark flame palm that he hadn't used for a long time to see how effective it was. Although this martial skill itself was not very good, now that he was already at the 7th level of the profound ascending stage, if he used this move, the power should be very good. Anyway, this old thing's most powerful treasure had been destroyed by him, so it didn't hurt to use a low-level martial skill to test it out. When did you go behind? Wei Shizhong glanced at the black aura that suddenly attacked from behind, and couldn't help but blurt out in surprise. He didn't dare to neglect his movements, and quickly concentrated all his yuan qi on his right fist, then turned around and punched heavily towards Xiao Chen's palm wind. Boom! The two men's fists and palms collided, making a deafening noise. The onlookers felt that the entire bandit's lair shook a few times. When Wei Shizhong's fist stuck to Xiao Chen's palm, he felt that something was wrong. His own yuan qi was rapidly losing, even if he wanted to seal his meridians, it would be useless. Wei Shizhong was shocked. He wanted to pull his fist back, but he discovered that his fist was stuck firmly to Xiao Chen's palm. It did not move at all, as if it had always been in Xiao Chen's hand. At this time, Wei Shizhong's face had become pale. He wanted to make a final effort, but it was too late. Chapter 1435. Wei Shizhong's right hand was quickly swallowed up by the black aura that was radiating from Xiao Chen's palm. The black aura continued to spread upward along Wei Shizhong's right hand, just like the silk threads on his iron horsetail whisk. It did not take long for his entire body to be shrouded in it. Wei Shizhong did not notice it at all. He was still trying to pull his right hand away from Xiao Chen's palm. Then, he suddenly felt a chill all over his body. Just as he was about to lower his head to check the situation, a stabbing pain suddenly erupted from the skin of his body straight to his heart. Wei Shizhong did not even have time to scream before he fell to the ground with his entire body turning black. Blood flowed out of his 7 orifices and he died instantly. Wow! Master Immortal, you're too awesome. Killing a cultivator at the peak of the nascent soul stage is simply a piece of cake. Gong Xiaoxi cheered with a face full of ecstasy. I must repeat this scene to my father and junior brother so that they can also know how awesome our master is. Hong Zhu, who had been on tenterhooks just a moment ago, also revealed a lovely smile at this moment. Like a swallow returning to its nest, she threw herself into Xiao Chen's embrace. Then, she gave him a peck on the cheek and proudly said, I told you that my man wouldn't be defeated by this kind of old man. I really have good taste. Xiao Chen patted Hong Zhu on the head, then glanced at Wei Shizhong, who was lying on the ground as dead as a doornail. He shook his head and said to Gong Xiaoxi with a regretful expression, it's a pity that this guy was too weak. I wanted to try out a few moves first and then use the flying bandit, but in the end, he died just like that. You didn't get to see Master's famous work. It's alright, Master Immortal. We have plenty of opportunities. It'll be the same next time. Gong Xiaoxi was overwhelmed by the favor and hurriedly waved his hand. A few bandits who were still alive had been hiding far away to observe the battle. When they saw that Wei Shizhong had been killed, they immediately turned around and fled, hoping to slip away before the enemy discovered them. But before they could run far, the mountain bandits suddenly felt their vision blur. Xiao Chen had rushed over and blocked their way. Seeing the playful expression on Xiao Chen's face, like a cat chasing a mouse, they all shivered in fear. They didn't know whether to kneel and beg for mercy or lie down and pretend to be unconscious. Don't run yet. I have a few questions for you. Xiao Chen casually dragged a skinny bandit over and asked nonchalantly, other than that yellow-clothed old thing, are there any more powerful experts in your den? The skinny bandit had originally thought that he was going to die. He closed his eyes in trepidation and waited for his judgment. However, when he heard Xiao Chen's question, he hurriedly opened his eyes and shook his head. With a sincere expression, he said, This exalted immortal, to tell you the truth, the old man that you killed earlier is called Wei Shizhong. He's our leader. There's no one more powerful than him here. Xiao Chen nodded and asked again, also, where do you hide the things you usually rob? The skinny bandit rolled his eyes and was about to name a random place for Xiao Chen and the rest to search first. Then, he would take the opportunity to slip away. But before he could open his mouth, he was interrupted by Xiao Chen, you better answer honestly. Don't waste my time with the wrong answer. Otherwise, I don't mind letting you end up like that old thing. The skinny bandit immediately shuddered and did not dare to have any more improper thoughts. He directly pointed to a relatively hidden house in the depths of the courtyard that had not been burned, and said in a low, trembling voice, Exalted. Exalted Immortal, that is our storeroom. Oh. Is he right? Xiao Chen turned his head and swept a cold glance at the other mountain bandits. All he saw was that they were nodding repeatedly like chicks pecking at rice. Their faces were filled with fear and did not look like they were lying. Only then did he casually throw the skinny bandit to the ground. The bandit thought that Xiao Chun had finished using him and was preparing to silence him. He crawled on the ground and did not dare to move, his back drenched in cold sweat. Scram! Don't commit any more crimes in the future. Just when those mountain bandits were on tenterhooks, Xiao Chen's indifferent voice sounded, otherwise, if you are caught by this great immortal next time, you won't be as lucky as you were this time. For a moment, the bandits thought that they had misheard him. It was only when they saw Xiao Chen turn around and leave did they realize that the ascendant immortal was telling the truth. Immediately, they scrambled away from the scene, wishing that they could grow 4 more legs and run for their lives. At this time, Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi also walked over. The latter gave Xiao Chen a heartfelt thumbs up and said with a face full of admiration, "Immortal Master, it is all thanks to your help today that we swept away all these disasters. Otherwise, if the Burning Heavens sect were to be constantly harassed by these mountain bandits in the future, I'm afraid that it would not be long before we are emptied." "Oh, it was nothing, no need to take it to heart." Xiao Chen casually patted Gong Xiaoxi's shoulder and led him and Hongzhu to the storeroom. The gratitude on Gong Xiaoxi's face became even more intense. "Immortal Master is really too good to me." Not only did he help the Burning Heavens sect clear away the external troubles, he was also so humble and did not take credit for it. To be able to have such a master, it was simply a blessing that he had cultivated in his previous life. After walking for a while, Xiao Chen suddenly thought of something. He turned around and asked Gong Xiaoxi, "Oh right, I have a question that I don't understand. You also know that my strength is much higher than that old fellow surnamed Wei, so why was I still restrained by his magic tool? This doesn't seem very logical." "Oh, right. Master Ascendant, it's like this. There are several types of magic artifacts. Everyone's magic artifacts are different. Normally, the more ordinary magic artifacts of immortal cultivators will only grow stronger according to the wielder's strength. These magic artifacts can be bought in the magic artifact shops in ordinary towns. However, some special magic artifacts are different. They will have different effects," Gong Xiaoxi explained with a chuckle. "Oh, like that iron horsetail whisk just now?" Xiao Chen raised his eyebrows. When he recalled that Wei Shizhong had mentioned the fur of an ancient spiritual beast, he seemed to have realized something. It seemed that this guy was not lying. "Exactly." Gong Xiaoxi nodded, and added, "Presumably, that old fellow had some kind of fortuitous encounter in the past, and was lucky enough to pick up the fur of an ancient spiritual beast. Therefore, when he made it into his magic tool, it will have a different kind of strength enhancement, such as the ability to be tough and unbreakable. That is why you were careless and fell into its trap. So that's how it is. I didn't think that this magic tool would have so many tricks up its sleeves. It seems that I will have to be a little more careful in the future." Only now did Xiao Chen nod in realization, and he could not help but sigh. Chapter 1436. If it wasn't for the help of the flames of the underworld just now, Xiao Chen reckoned that he would have suffered a little at Wei Shizhong's hands. Although that old thing's strength wasn't good, at most he would only suffer some superficial wounds. If he was beaten up by someone weaker than him, he would still feel a little unhappy. How embarrassing it would be if word got out. "Exalted Immortal Master, you are too modest. Isn't your magic tool also very powerful? Not only does it have a flying sword that can be controlled independently, but that bluish-purple flame is also very powerful. It can even burn the mane of an ancient spiritual beast in an instant." You didn't notice Wei Shizhong's expression at that time. It was as if he had seen a ghost. Gong Xiaoxi said as he slapped his thigh. Actually, Gong Xiaoxi was a little surprised. As an exalted immortal, how could Xiao Chang not know the principles behind a magic tool? However, he quickly found an excuse for exalted immortal Xiao. Gong Xiaoxi felt that Xiao Chang must have been a disciple of some hidden sect or great immortal, so he did not know much about the outside world. That must be it. That's right, that's right. At that time, we were standing behind you and saw the old man's appearance. I felt that he had been scared silly. Hongzhu nodded repeatedly. When he recalled the scene from before, he still felt a little unsatisfied. Sigh, at that time, I thought that if I could one day obtain a magic tool like that of exalted immortal master, I would be willing to lose 20 years of my life. Gong Xiaoxi's eyes sparkled as he sighed with envy. I want it too. I want it too. It was as if Hongzhu had been enlightened by Gong Xiaoxi. She immediately grabbed Xiao Chen's arm and swung it around. She did not want to give up and said, "Husband Xiao Chang, I don't dare to ask for a magic tool that's too rare. I feel disgusted by the fur of an ancient spiritual beast. Just let me play with your flying sword. Why don't you get a new one and give it to me as a gift?" Alright then. If there is a chance in the future, I will help you snatch a few flying swords to use. Xiao Chen could not do anything about Hongzhu's pestering. He could only nod his head helplessly and agree. However, Xiao Chen had a different thought in his heart. Do you think flying swords are so easy to get? This flying sword of mine has a particularly troubled life. It had been smashed and rebuilt several times. Besides, even if you really have a flying sword, you may not be able to control it. Although everyone is a cultivator, there is still a fundamental difference. If you don't have a good understanding of divine sense, then you don't know how to use a flying sword. Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi were naturally unaware of Xiao Chen's inner ridicule. Just hearing his promise was enough to make them dance with joy. At this time, they had already reached the back of the courtyard, the door of the storehouse that the skinny bandit had mentioned. Gong Xiaoxi jogged forward and forcefully pushed open the door of the storehouse. As soon as the door opened, it was filled with all kinds of heavenly treasures. There were also many rare treasures that had been plundered. The wooden shelves against the wall were filled to the brim, and there were even a few crooked wooden boxes stacked in the corner. Hongzhu hurriedly ran over and opened one of the boxes to take a look. He discovered that it was filled to the brim with spirit crystals. It was enough to show that these bandits had indeed harmed many of the merchants of Wuxia Prefecture. Seeing the two people who looked as if they had struck a fortune and were filled with joy, Xiao Chen's expression was very calm. He looked around the storehouse, but did not follow them in. Instead, he frowned slightly, crossed his arms in front of his chest, and leaned against the door frame. He lowered his head and fell into deep thought. From Xiao Chen's point of view, these bandits did not seem as simple as they appeared on the surface. It was possible that there was an even more powerful backer behind them. Xiao Chen had his own reasons for making such a deduction. Just now, when he had set fire to the house, he had discovered that the scale of the house was extremely large. It did not seem like something that ordinary bandits could build. Moreover, there were quite a few golden core cultivators in the courtyard. It must be known that even a large faction like the Burning Sky faction did not have many golden core disciples. How could a group of bandits have such high capabilities? If that was really the case, then what was the point of them being bandits? Wouldn't it be safer to be a bodyguard in a random place than to be a bandit? Moreover, although the bandit leader, Wei Shizhong, had a cultivation at the peak of the nascent soul stage, Xiao Chen could feel that this guy lacked a kind of leadership aura. He looked more like a follower or an elder. He was the type of person who did not have a mind of his own and only relied on his strength to do things. Even Duan Suqing, the head of the Burning Sky faction, although his strength was not high, as the head of a sect, his temperament was more high-end and elegant. Naturally, he emitted a kind of prestige of a person in a high position, which was not inferior to Wei Shizhong's. These points were what Xiao Chen was puzzled about. If it was really as he had deduced, and there was a powerful force behind these bandits, then if he did not uncover this force, these bandits would most likely come back in other ways. And most importantly, after this failure, these people might not be so easy to deal with. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen could not help but feel a little regretful. If he had known this would happen, he would not have let those escaping bandits go. Instead, he would have detained them and interrogated them carefully. At that time, he did not think so much. He thought that these people were just ordinary bandits under Wei Shizhong. So he let them go and wanted them to do some serious business. Now that he thought about it, it was probably not that simple. It had to be said that sometimes, Xiao Chen's intuition was surprisingly accurate. Those bandits were indeed not a group of their own. They were just small toys under a huge force. The group of bandits that Xiao Chen let go, as well as other people that he didn't notice, took advantage of the chaos to escape from their lair, and once again gathered together. After a short meeting, they separated into two groups. Some of them ran into the mountains to hide, while the others snuck into the Luxian prefecture. They found different places to stay, and then immediately reported the situation to their superiors, who were a level higher than Wei Shizhong. Then, they quietly hid in a hidden place in the Luxian prefecture, waiting for the next order. A few hundred kilometers away from the Luxian prefecture, in a house in a bustling city, servants were busy coming and going. Strangely, although there were many servants walking around, there was only a room in the middle of the backyard. No one could be seen. Everyone seemed to be afraid of this place. When they passed by, they all took a detour. Moreover, their footsteps were very light, for fear of disturbing the people in the room who were talking in the room. In the room, there was an old man in purple sitting in the guest seat. On the main seat, there was a middle-aged man reclining. His face was wrapped in a thin gauze, so his appearance could not be seen clearly. However, his eyes that were exposed flashed from time to time. He looked very powerful. Chapter 1437. At that moment, the two of them were discussing something. The middle-aged man's voice was a little weak, and it sounded as if he was out of breath. It seemed that he had been injured recently and had not fully recovered. The purple-robed elder was full of energy. However, in order to match the middle-aged man's voice, he deliberately lowered his voice and reported something respectfully. "What is Luxian Prefecture doing?" The middle-aged man's voice carried a trace of anger, and his eyes were hazy. It was obvious that he was a little angry. Wei Shizhong disappeared without a word, and his subordinates even had to report it to the higher-ups. "What is going on?" "Young master, I also feel that this matter is a little strange." The purple-robed elder frowned and said in a low voice, "The horse bandits that were lying in ambush in Moyao town also encountered a powerful immortal cultivator. You know about this, right?" "Yes, I let Jin Yuanfeng fight with her directly, but in the end, he was no match for that little girl. If you had not arranged for someone to lie in ambush, I reckon that Jin Yuanfeng would have been killed." The young master sighed heavily, as if he was very disappointed with Jin Yuanfeng. "Yes, after that, our people caught her. However, this little girl was very uncooperative with our questioning. My subordinates continuously interrogated her for a few days, but they did not manage to get anything out of her." The purple-robed elder's expression was a little dejected. Because Cheng Menjing's strength was relatively high, after she was captured, the purple-clothed old man did not dare to interrogate her. He did not even dare to let her break her skin. He was afraid that this little girl had the backing of a large family or sect that he did not know. They could only treat Cheng Menjing like a guest. They served her with good food and drinks, and provided her with a comfortable room. Then, they would suddenly ask a few questions. However, it was a pity that Cheng Menjing was smarter than them. So far, they had not been able to get any definite and effective clues out of her. "Oh. Elder Shen, you said that the little girl's name is Cheng Yaoyao? Are you sure that this is her real name?" The young master muttered to himself for a while, then knocked on the table and asked. "This? I'm actually not too sure." Elder Shen shook his head helplessly and said honestly, "But even if she's not telling the truth, my subordinates won't be able to get the information out of her. After all, we can't torture her. You also know, there are many strange people and hidden experts in the immortal cultivation world. If she's the disciple or last disciple of some old monster, then it'll be troublesome." The young master nodded, expressing his understanding of Elder Shen's dilemma. After thinking for a moment, he asked, "Have you checked the roster in our warehouse? All the families or sects that have established diplomatic relations with us, as well as their collateral descendants, is there anyone with the surname Cheng? It doesn't matter even if it's a man. I've checked everything that you've mentioned, and I've checked 3 times. Coincidentally, there isn't a single sect or family with this surname. I've even specially asked them one by one. Not to mention the collateral descendants, even the servants that they've invited don't have the surname Cheng." Elder Shen shook his head again, looking very discouraged. It sounded easy, but in order to confirm Cheng Menjiang's identity, Elder Shen had stayed up all night several times. The roster had almost been torn to shreds by him, and he had even contacted every single big family and sect. In the end, there was still no result. He was so worried that a few strands of white hair had grown out. How is this possible? The young master slammed the table and suddenly stood up. He said angrily, "Isn't this a little too strange? Where did these people come from?" Elder Shen rubbed his temples and sighed with a slight headache. This question had been lingering in his mind for a few days. These powerful people seemed to have sprung up from the ground. They had been silent all this while, but now they had appeared all of a sudden. The young master paced back and forth a few steps and murmured, "Moyao Town has always been lacking in top experts. The big family only has the Fan family that does business. I didn't expect that Jin Yuanfeng would be killed by a little girl at the nascent Soul Realm. The Luxian County is even more ridiculous. The dignified Wei Shizhong, who was at the nascent Soul Realm, was actually killed by a little kid in one move. Looks like that guy is at least at the profound ascension stage." Elder Shen pondered for a moment. He rolled his eyes and cautiously suggested, "Young master, recently, our forces have gradually grown stronger. We've already begun to infiltrate some of the wealthier towns in the immortal cultivation world. Basically, we have spies in every town. Do you think we should let them spread out and check to see if there are any strangers that have appeared recently? Maybe there will be some clues." "All right. We'll do as you say." The young master nodded his head decisively and agreed. He then turned around and said, "Oh right, remember to tell those people in other places that if they meet an expert when robbing or blocking the road, don't fight them head-on. You can test them. If you can't beat them, immediately retreat. Send the news back first and gather them here to deal with it." "Yes," subordinate obeys. Elder Shen stood up and cupped his fists to accept the order. He then asked, "Then how should we deal with the guy from the Burning Sky faction? Should we send an expert to kill him directly, or should we keep him for observation for a while?" "You don't have to worry about this matter. After all, that is a profound ascension stage expert. He's not someone you can kill whenever you want." The young master rejected Elder Shen's suggestion and waved his hand, "You can go. Just do what I told you. If there are any new developments, report to me at any time." "All right," subordinate will take his leave. Elder Shen naturally would not disobey. He respectfully bowed and left the room. Then, he carefully closed the door. After sending Elder Shen away, the young master took out a sound-transmitting talisman from his pocket. He hesitated for a moment, then seemed to have made up his mind. He brought over a basin of water and carefully placed the sound-transmitting talisman on the surface of the water. He silently said a few words. Not long after, the sound-transmitting talisman emitted a faint white light. There were ripples on the surface of the water. A few bubbles slowly floated up. At the same time, a cold male voice came out. "How's your injury?" A loud but emotionless voice echoed in the large room. Although he said words of concern, it didn't sound like he cared at all. "Fa. Father, my injury is more or less fine. I'll completely recover after resting for a while. Thank you for your concern." The young master was obviously startled. He did not expect that his father would actually ask about his injury. He was somewhat surprised in his heart. He paused for a moment before replying with a stutter. Chapter 1438. Oh, it's good that you're fine. Why are you in such a hurry to find me? Did you encounter some trouble again? The voice did not linger on this matter and went straight to the main topic. Moreover, it sounded quite impatient. The young master was still a little emotional before, but after hearing the voice, he immediately became sober. He respectfully reported to the basin, "Yes, father, there is indeed a little trouble. There are some problems in Moyao Town and Lucian Prefecture. It's like this." Next, the young master reported the recent happenings in Moyao Town and Lucian Prefecture. He emphasized that the captured Cheng Yaoyao and the profound ascending stage expert in Lucian Prefecture suddenly appeared recently. After listening to the young master's description, the man on the other side of the basin did not immediately respond. He seemed to first ponder for a while, then slowly opened his mouth. "Don't worry about the girl with the surname Cheng for now. I'm a little interested in the Burning Sky faction kid you mentioned. Have you found out about this guy's identity and background?" "This? Not yet." The young master replied with some embarrassment, then quickly added, "But Elder Shen has already contacted the big clans and sects that we have established diplomatic relations with. They all said that they did not send out this kind of expert." After finishing this sentence, the young master had been waiting for his father's reply, but there was no movement from the basin for a long time. He felt a little uneasy in his heart. After hesitating for a while, he gathered his courage and analyzed, "I feel that those sects and clans have a certain amount of power and reputation. Even if they really sent out an expert of the same level, I guess they would not send him to a small place like the Burning Sky faction in Lucian Prefecture. So according to my guess, that guy is likely to be a proud disciple of some old monster who has been in seclusion for a long time." After the young master finished speaking, the man's voice quickly sounded, "If that's the case, you can send an expert at the peak of the profound ascending stage to meet the Burning Sky faction kid. It's best if you can lure his master out. This kind of old thing will sooner or later be a disaster in the immortal cultivation world. You can either keep him as a dog or directly eliminate him." The man's voice was extremely cold. When he talked about killing people, it was as easy as cutting melons and vegetables. He had no fear towards the so-called hidden expert. "All right, no problem. I'll get it done right away." After receiving the instruction, the young master felt reassured and immediately nodded. He felt that his father should have finished speaking, so he reached for the basin and prepared to pour the water out. However, just as the young master's hand touched the edge of the basin, he saw a few more bubbles floating to the surface. Startled, he immediately stopped what he was doing and held his breath as he waited for his father to speak again. He wanted to see what other instructions he had for him. "Wait." As the bubbles burst, the man's cold voice sounded again, "I've thought about it. We can't let our people do anything about this." The young master was stunned. Just now, he said that he would send a master at the peak of the profound ascending stage, and now he didn't want him to fight? Why was that? Fortunately, the man's analysis voice quickly rang out again, "Even though the Lucian Prefecture is not considered a big place, there are many people here. If someone from another faction were to accidentally see this, no matter who it is, it would be troublesome." The young master came to a sudden realization and nodded in agreement. Suddenly, he remembered that his father couldn't see and quickly said, "Father is still the most thorough. What should we do then?" "Oh. I just thought of a new plan. We need to do this and this, and this and this." The man's voice became softer and softer, and the young master had to lean very close to the basin to hear it. Any further and he would only be able to hear a whisper. The young master leaned over the basin and carefully listened to the plan. He felt that his father's way of handling things was better, so he readily agreed. After ending the call with his father, the young master took out a sound-transmitting talisman and gently placed it on the surface of the water. These past few days, the Burning Heavens faction had been very lively. All the disciples were busy transporting heavenly materials and earthly treasures back from the bandits' lair. Because there were too many things being transported back, even Gong Xiaoxi and Duan Suqing joined the team to help count. Even though they were a little tired, seeing the many treasures that had been lost and recovered, the mood of everyone in the Burning Sky faction was very good. Hong Zhu, on the other hand, had been wandering around the pile of things that had been brought back. Her eyes stared at the chests of spirit crystals, feeling as if her eyes were emitting a golden light. Sometimes, when others weren't paying attention, Hong Zhu would casually grab a handful of spirit crystals and stuff them into her underwear. Then, she would reveal a secretly delighted expression and happily hum a song by herself. Hong Zhu thought that she was doing it secretly, but everyone actually knew that she was stealing spirit crystals. It was just that Gong Xiaoxi and Duan Suqing didn't care about it at all. In their eyes, it wouldn't be a problem even if they gave all the spirit crystals to Hong Zhu, because those were things that exalted immortal Xiao had snatched back. As his Tao companion, Hong Zhu naturally had the right to do as she pleased. When the other disciples who were busy transporting saw that the sect master and the managing elder didn't say anything, they also tactfully chose to remain silent. Xiao Chen, on the other hand, didn't care about this. He just sat lazily to the side and watched everything that was going on. Ever since he had returned from the bandits' lair, Xiao Chen's heart had always had a faint premonition that something bad was about to happen. However, if he wanted to investigate carefully, he wouldn't be able to find out the specific reason. Therefore, he could only sit there with an uneasy mood and wait for something to happen. Reporting to Sect Master Duan, Managing Elder. Yun Xian Sect's Elder Nangong has brought disciples to pay a visit. They are currently waiting outside the main gate. Just as Xiao Chen was about to put away his thoughts and tease Hong Zhu, he suddenly heard the sound of dang 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 footsteps outside the door. A disciple hurriedly ran in and loudly reported while gasping for breath. "Trouble's coming." Xiao Chen quivered as this sentence suddenly flashed in his mind. When the disciple reported just now, Xiao Chen's heart unconsciously thumped. Although he didn't know what the Yun Xian sect was, his intuition told him that these people might be inextricably linked to the bandits that had scattered in all directions. Yun Xian sect? What are they doing at the Burning Heaven sect? When Duan Suqing heard the report, he couldn't help but be slightly stunned. He turned to look at Gong Xiaoxi and found that he also had a blank expression on his face. After thinking for a while, he instructed the disciple, "Invite Elder Nangong to the guest hall first. Take good care of him. The managing elder and I will arrive shortly. Do not neglect them." Chapter 1439. Looking at the back of the Burning Sky sect disciple who was running away, Xiao Chen put on an interested expression and asked, "Sect Master Duan, where did that Profound Cloud sect come from? Could it be that the Burning Sky sect has a relationship with them? Or did you guys offend someone from the Profound Cloud sect before, so they came to find trouble? I don't think I've heard you guys mention this sect before." "Hee, exalted immortal Xiao, you think too highly of our Burning Sky sect." Duan Suqing helplessly laughed bitterly and waved his hand. The Profound Cloud sect ranks second in the entire cultivation world in terms of foundation and strength. How could the Burning Sky sect have such great charisma? What kind of relationship could we have with them? It's even more impossible to offend such a colossus. They only need to move their fingers and they can annihilate our entire sect. Why bother humiliating ourselves? It's only second place. What's so great about it? Then what's the number one sect in the cultivation world? When Hong Zhu heard Duan Suqing's description, he couldn't help but curl his lips and snort. In Hong Zhu's mind, Xiao Chen was the most powerful person. The other number one and number two were all trash, not worth mentioning at all. "Master's wife, let me tell you this." Gong Xiaoxi put down the pen and paper that recorded the treasures, jumped out from the pile of herbs, shook off the dried leaves on his clothes, and said with a smile, "There are three great sects at the top of the cultivation world. Number one is the Huanshan Pavilion, number two is the Profound Cloud sect, and the last is the Tsanghua sect. Three great sects. Hongzhu frowned and muttered with some disdain, "Why do I hear these three great sects' names sound so mediocre? They're just mediocre. Could it be that there aren't any other powerful sects or clans that can compare to them?" This. Gong Xiaoxi scratched his head and said with some uncertainty, "I've actually heard that in recent years, there seem to be two mysterious sects that have suddenly emerged. Their strength is developing rapidly, and they're showing signs of catching up to the three great sects." "Oh? So magical?" Hongzhu's interest was immediately piqued. He held his chin and asked curiously, "Elder sister, I feel that the two sects you mentioned are a bit interesting. Disciple, do you know their origins?" Gong Xiaoxi rubbed his nose and smiled embarrassedly. Although they have been developing very quickly recently, they were only small sects in the past. No one has ever carefully investigated their origins. Moreover, I heard that the whereabouts of these two sects are very secretive and they rarely appear in the immortal cultivation world. So, I actually don't know much about them. Sorry to disappoint Master's wife. Hongzhu pursed his lips in disinterest. Just as he was about to say something, Xiaochen waved his hand and interrupted him. "All right, little Hongzhu, we don't have time to inquire about these trivial matters. Let's go and chat with the people from the Profound Cloud sect first. Let's see what their purpose for coming here is. It won't be too late to chat after we've settled this." Xiao Chen had always been brooding over the Profound Cloud sect's intentions. He had a strong feeling that this sect had come with ill intentions, so he wanted to solve this problem first. As for other matters, he could deal with them later. Xiao Chen had always been brooding over the purpose of the Profound Cloud sect's visit. He had a strong feeling that this sect probably did not come with good intentions, so he wanted to solve this problem first. As for other things, it would not be too late to deal with them later. In the main seat of the living room, sat an old man wearing a light green robe. Behind him stood 5 young men. Each of them had a dignified expression on their faces and did not conceal their cultivation. They were all experts at the peak of the nascent soul stage. This old man was the Profound Cloud sect's elder Nan Gong. He picked up the cup that was respectfully handed to him by a servant and took a sip. Soon after, he frowned and slammed the cup heavily on the table. It was obvious that he was somewhat dissatisfied with the tea. Raising his eyes, Elder Nan Gong just happened to see Xiao Chen and his party coming towards him. He didn't have any intention of standing up and continued to sit leisurely on the chair. His expression was neither cold nor warm, making it very difficult to guess what he was thinking. "Ha ha ha, this must be the famous Elder Nan Gong. Nice to meet you, nice to meet you. I've heard so much about you." After walking into the hall, Duan Suqing cupped his fists and bowed according to the rules. He slightly leaned forward and said some polite words. Elder Nan Gong made a sound of "oh," but still didn't stand up. His eyes were lowered as if he was studying the patterns on the ground, as if he hadn't heard Duan Suqing's greetings. Duan Suqing awkwardly coughed twice, and then respectfully said, "Elder Nangong's presence this time is truly an honor for our Burning Heaven sect. I don't know what advice you have for our humble sect." Only then did Elder Nan Gong raise his eyes. His sharp eyes swept over everyone, pausing on Xiao Chen and Hongzhu for a moment. Then, he turned his gaze to Duan Suqing and asked expressionlessly, "There's no need for advice. This old man heard that a few days ago, you exterminated a group of bandits and obtained a lot of heavenly treasures from their storehouse. Is this true?" I didn't think that this gossip would spread so quickly." Duan Suqing was stunned. He didn't think that Elder Nan Gong would actually ask such a question. He subconsciously pointed at Xiao Chen and said, "It's all thanks to Immortal Zhao's help that our humble sect was able to successfully exterminate that group of bandits in one fell swoop. We've let Elder Nan Gong see a joke." Although he said that, Duan Suqing muttered in his heart, "Isn't this old fellow's nose a little too sensitive? The Profound Cloud sect is about a few hundred kilometers away from the Burning Heaven sect. How did he know that the bandits were exterminated? And what does this have to do with the Profound Cloud sect? Although he was muttering, Duan Suqing didn't have any intention of hiding it. Since this elder Nan Gong could mention this matter as soon as he came up, it meant that he had already done his investigation beforehand. Even if he lied and said that there was no such thing, he would still be exposed in the end. It was better to admit it frankly. Immortal. Xiao. Elder Nan Gong looked in the direction that Duan Suqing was pointing at. His expression couldn't help but become sluggish. He carefully looked at Xiao Chen and asked with some uncertainty, "Are you talking about this young man?" "That's right. Immortal Zhao's strength is outstanding, and he has made great contributions to our Burning Heaven sect. He's a great benefactor of our sect." Duan Suqing nodded and introduced him very enthusiastically. Elder Nan Gong glanced at Xiao Chen again and said indifferently, "I really couldn't tell that at such a young age, you're actually being praised as an immortal. As far as I know, that bandit leader seems to be an expert at the nascent soul stage. To be able to kill him without a scratch, it seems that you do have some ability." Chapter 1440. Oh, it's just so. What's so special about a nascent soul peak? Even if it's a profound ascending stage master, I can easily kill him. Xiao Chen stretched and said casually. "Young man, although it is said that a newborn calf is not afraid of a tiger, this old man advises you to restrain yourself a little. Don't go around talking big. Otherwise, it will be bad if you get slapped in the face." Elder Nan Gong sneered and mocked in a neutral tone. "So what if I don't restrain myself? Are you going to bite me?" At this time, Xiao Chen had a rough idea in his heart. The corner of his mouth raised. He took 2 steps forward and sat on the chair next to Elder Nan Gong. He crossed his legs and said leisurely, "But I found out that your Profound Cloud sect is quite well informed. Don't tell me you want to take advantage of the situation and get a piece of the pie. Presumptuous. Those treasures were originally stolen from our Profound Cloud sect. It's natural for us to come and take them back." Before Elder Nan Gong could speak, a Profound Cloud sect disciple behind him stood up and pointed at Xiao Chen. He said angrily, "And you brat, you actually dare to be so boastful. How dare you disrespect our Elder Nan Gong? Are you itching for a beating?" When Duan Suqing and Gong Xiaoxi heard this, their faces changed. They looked at each other for a moment and felt a little strange. Those heavenly treasures were obviously stolen from the Burning Sky sect's garden by those bandits. Why did this Profound Cloud sect suddenly stick their noses in? Your Profound Cloud sect is hundreds of miles away. No matter how much trouble the bandits cause, they won't cause trouble there, right? What's more, the Profound Cloud sect has a long history and a deep foundation. There are many experts in the sect. Even if those little bandits eat bear's heart and leopard's gall, they wouldn't dare to come and steal your things. Wasn't this clearly robbing a burning house? What else could it be? Duan Suqing and Gong Xiaoxi both had a look of disbelief on their faces. They didn't expect that the Profound Cloud sect, a famous sect in the cultivation world, could actually do such a despicable thing. They even had the cheek to act so righteously. Isn't this a little too shameless? No way, didn't your Profound Cloud sect claim to be the second largest sect in the cultivation world? How could he be robbed by a few bandits? It seems like you're only a so-so. Xiao Chen was already mentally prepared, but he still pretended to be very surprised and sighed. Cut the crap. The disciple was a little lacking in confidence, but he still forced himself to reprimand, "People make mistakes, horses stumble. Even the Profound Cloud sect has times of slacking. Isn't it normal for bandits to steal things?" Hongzhu, who had been silent all this while, suddenly let out a giggle. His smile was like a blooming spring flower, causing the disciple who was looking at him to be somewhat dumbfounded. The Profound Cloud sect is so powerful. Logically speaking, they only need to casually send a few experts out to defeat those bandits, right? Hongzhu grinned as he looked at that person, but the words that came out of his mouth were neither cold nor warm as he ridiculed, "I didn't think that such a large sect would actually have my husband stand up for you in the end. Now, not only are you not thanking me, but you also want to ask for something. Isn't this a little too shameful? Did you hear that?" Xiaofan snapped his fingers and unhurriedly said, "This great immortal's Tao companion is right. Since this great immortal was the one who stole it, it naturally belongs to me. I can give it to whoever I like. You guys are lacking in ability and had your things stolen by others, yet you still have the nerve to chase after me to ask for it back. If this matter were to spread, I reckon that your profound cloud sect would not be able to survive in the cultivation world in the future." After he finished speaking, Xiaofan gave Hongzhu a look of praise and secretly gave her a thumbs up. Although this little girl usually didn't know what to do, her mind was still very sharp in critical moments. It just so happened that he was able to go along with her words. Hongzhu naturally wouldn't let go of any opportunity to tease Xiaofan. She immediately threw him a flirtatious look with an expression that said, "It's a great fortune that you can find me. We couldn't find the bandits' lair. Otherwise, they would have been killed long ago. How could it be your turn to act?" When the disciple saw Xiaofan and Hongzhu blatantly flirting with each other, he felt a burst of jealousy in his heart and stuttered, "They just had a bit of dog shit luck and found the entrance somewhere. How dare they be so arrogant? This is simply outrageous. Oh, what's the point of saying all this? In the end, isn't it because you don't have the ability? Alright, don't talk nonsense." Xiaofan waved his hand disinterestedly, then turned to look at Duan Suqing and said indifferently, "Sect leader Duan, I suggest that you send our guests away. We still have a lot of things in our courtyard to count. There's no need to waste words with them here. Let's hurry up and get down to business. Exalted Immortal Xiao, don't you think this matter?" Duan Suqing also had a difficult expression on his face at this moment. He stammered and didn't know what to say to smooth things over. On one side was the great benefactor of the Burning Sky sect, Gong Xiaoxi's master and Gong Ruidong's master. On the other side was the famous Profound Cloud sect in the cultivation world. Although the reason they came to ask for heavenly treasures was somewhat far-fetched, he couldn't afford to offend a small Burning Sky sect. "I say, great sect leader Duan, has your Burning Sky sect changed its surname to Xiao?" Without waiting for Duan Suqing to finish speaking, Elder Nangong interrupted in a strange tone, "If this old man remembers correctly, besides you, the sect leader, the Burning Sky sect should also have a grand elder, right?" Duan Suqing wiped his sweat and explained with difficulty, "Elder Nangong, our Burning Sky sect does indeed have a grand elder, but he is currently injured and can't, even if he is injured, he is still the backbone of the Burning Sky sect. Since when is it your turn to be in charge?" Elder Nangong sneered, glanced at Xiaofan, and said mockingly, "Not to mention this so-called, exalted immortal, who came out of nowhere." Gong Xiaoxi suddenly took a step forward with some dissatisfaction and said loudly, "Grand Elder Gong Ruidong is my father. He and I have already formally acknowledged Exalted Immortal Xiao as our master, so Exalted Immortal Xiao has full authority to make decisions for our Burning Sky sect." Elder Nangong was finally stunned and didn't immediately fight back, because he really didn't have this information. A father and son acknowledged the same master? How should they address each other normally? No matter who is in charge, it is an internal matter of the Burning Sky sect. It has nothing to do with you. Xiaofan snorted and looked at Elder Nangong from the corner of his eyes. He said, "Anyway, those natural treasures were all snatched by our Burning Sky faction. If Elder Nangong wants them back, it's not impossible. However, you have to pay 200,000 spirit crystals in advance as compensation for my labor and hard work." Chapter 1441. In fact, Xiaofan knew very well that although the herbs planted by the Burning Sky faction were precious, they were not worth 200,000 spirit crystals at most. Therefore, he was asking for too much this time. As for why he did this, the purpose was very simple. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that the Xianyun sect must have another purpose this time. It was definitely not as simple as extorting some herbs. Therefore, Xiaochen was too lazy to beat around the bush with the elder Nangong. He intended to force out his real intention directly. Bullsh *t. You brat, you're simply talking nonsense. The elder Nangong's eyes flashed with anger. He stared at Xiaochen and said sternly, those treasures originally belonged to our Xianyun sect. Moreover, I have never asked your Burning Sky faction to help wipe out the mountain bandits. It is all your wishful thinking. Why should the Xianyun sect pay 200,000 spirit crystals? Unable to suppress the anger in his heart, the elder Nangong simply waved his fist and directly smashed the rosewood table beside him. With a boom sound, the sawdust suddenly flew all over the sky. It could be seen that he was really angry. Xiaochen was slightly startled. He looked at the faint aura emitted by the elder Nangong. For a moment, he could not see through the elder Nangong's cultivation. He was a little vigilant. He secretly ordered the fire of the underworld and a little demon to prepare in advance. The expression on his face remained as calm as ever. Duan Suqing was a little panicked at this time. He waved his hand and wanted to say something to change the situation. However, before he could speak, he was interrupted by Xiaochen. Elder Nangong is really good. You came to other sects to tear down the table. In that case, let's talk about the 200,000 spirit crystals later. Give me 1,000 spirit crystals as compensation for this table. Humph. It's just 1,000 spirit crystals. I still have it. However, it is not used to compensate for the table. It is a gift for you to buy a coffin. Go to hell, little bastard. The elder Nangong sneered. A towering aura suddenly burst out from his body. The pressure was like a monstrous wave that rolled and spread in the reception hall. It was the realm of the profound ascension stage. Elder Nangong had long been a little impatient. This time, they had mustered a large force to come to Burning Sky faction. What bandits? What treasures? Those were all excuses. Their true objective was to kill this exalted immortal Xiao. And this whole thing was personally planned by the young master's father. The key was to lure out the murderer and kill him to avenge Wei Shizhong. At the same time, he could take back the spiritual crystals and heaven and earth treasures that had been stolen. The surrounding air had become stagnant. That heavy and powerful pressure made everyone feel suffocated. The oppressive feeling of death made Xiaochen's hair stand on end. He quickly retreated. It had been a long time since Xiaochen had encountered such a powerful master. He understood in his heart that he absolutely couldn't give his opponent any chance to make a move. He had to make the first move and kill him with a single blow. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Nethery. Little demon N. Don't be merciful. Use your most powerful moves to kill that old thing. As he retreated quickly, Xiaochen shouted in the sea of consciousness. Following Xiaochen's command, the underworld flame and a little demon holding a flying sword appeared on both sides of him at the same time. They rushed toward the position where Elder Nangong was standing from two directions. The flame of the underworld, which was charging forward quickly, continuously absorbed the essence in Xiaochen's body. It gradually turned from an inconspicuous little flame into a huge fireball. From time to time, it would even spit out a tongue of bluish-purple flame. It looked extremely dangerous, but it was also rather gorgeous. On the other hand, Xiaoma took a different path. As she rushed forward, she split into two, then into four. In the blink of an eye, there were dozens of identical figures in the living room. Each of the humanoid black gas held a flying sword in their hands. They stabbed at Elder Nangong's chest from different angles and directions without any blind spots. Hehe, you really have some skills. It seems that I have underestimated you just now. Elder Nangong, who saw this terrifying scene, didn't look afraid at all. Instead, the corners of his mouth curled into a strange arc. He taunted unhurriedly, "I didn't expect you to have some skills at such a young age, but, that's all." As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Nangong's hands suddenly moved. Two diamond-shaped jade artifacts, one black and one white, appeared in his hands. In the blink of an eye, the white jade artifact in Elder Nangong's left hand had transformed into a diamond-shaped shield that glowed with white light, while a black phantom spear had appeared in his right hand. The two artifacts were shining with a strange light, and it was obvious that they were not ordinary artifacts. Xiao Chen's footsteps paused slightly. He stared at the artifacts in Elder Nangong's hands with a solemn face. He could feel a strong fluctuation of vitality from those two things. All the artifacts he had seen before paled in comparison to these two. After carefully evaluating the strength of the two sides, Xiao Chen had already keenly realized that even if he let Abyssal Flame and Little Demon use their full strength, it was very likely that they wouldn't be able to hurt the other party at all. After all, both of them relied on Xiao Chen to be able to survive. In addition to their own abilities, they needed to borrow his vitality to enhance the lethality of their martial arts. The strength of the old guy in front of him was at the great perfection of the Mystic Ascension stage. He was much stronger than Xiao Chen, who was at the 7th level of the Mystic Ascension stage. Therefore, Abyssal Flame and Little Demon would definitely be helpless against him. From the moment Elder Nangong revealed his artifact to the moment Xiao Chen made a judgment, it was actually only a moment. With this in mind, Xiao Chen knew that today's fight was probably a little dangerous. However, he did not hesitate at all and quickly used his movement technique. Taking advantage of the fact that Elder Nangong was busy dealing with the flames of the underworld and Little Demon, Xiao Chen advanced instead of retreating. Leaving an afterimage where he was standing, he rushed behind Elder Nangong like a ghost. Waving his arms quickly, he slapped Elder Nangong's back heavily. Xiao Chen had already used all his strength in this palm. He only hoped that he could hit with one blow. Even if he couldn't kill Elder Nangong, he wanted to seriously injure him. Boom! The hellfire of the underworld launched a powerful attack at this moment, but it was perfectly blocked by the white diamond shield in Elder Nangong's left hand. There was only a loud explosion, but Elder Nangong was unscathed. Xiao Chen was originally delighted in his heart. He thought that the huge explosion would be able to cover up the wind generated from his palm strike. He didn't expect that Elder Nangong had already predicted that he would launch a sneak attack. He retracted the black phantom spear in his right hand, and as if he had eyes on his back, the end of the spear's handle coincidentally collided with Xiao Chen's palm, causing him to involuntarily take a step back. Chapter 1442. At the same time, Elder Nangong waved his arm fiercely and swept the shield in front of him, hitting most of Xiaoma's avatars that were floating in the air and smashing them one by one. In this short span of a breath, Elder Nangong blocked the fire of the underworld on the left, stopped Xiao Chen's sneak attack from the back, and repelled a group of Xiaoma. He actually resolved all the attacks easily. Everyone present was dumbfounded. Xiao Chen and Elder Nangong's series of attacks and defenses dazzled everyone, making it hard for their eyes to take in all of it. Some of the weaker juniors did not see the movements of the two at all. They only heard a series of banging sounds and Xiao Chen suddenly appeared behind Elder Nangong. Then, many inexplicable things appeared in the living room. At this time, Xiao Chen's right palm had been hit by the handle of Elder Nangong's spear. There was a bone-cracking pain that started from the palm that was hit and gradually spread to his entire right arm. Xiao Chen frowned and shouted while enduring the pain, "Little Nethery and Xiaoma, don't attack separately. Attack together and kill him with all your might." After hearing Xiao Chen's order, the fire of the underworld jumped a few times in the air and suddenly turned into a bluish-purple smoke, quickly entering Xiaoma's body. After obtaining the power of the fire of the underworld, Xiaoma's two pitch-black eye sockets quietly appeared a wisp of flame. His mouth also began to spew fire. Even the flying sword that was originally as bright as autumn water was gradually covered with a layer of bluish-purple shimmer. It looked as if it was dipped in poison, which was extremely strange. Oh. This is a little interesting. I didn't expect these two artifacts to not only have their own consciousness, but they can also merge into one. Elder Nangong looked at Xiaoma up and down with interest. He found that his figure seemed to have grown bigger and looked more powerful than before. He. Are you afraid? Why don't you kneel down and admit your mistake? Maybe I'll be merciful and leave your corpse intact. And little demon said with a strange smile as he felt that he was full of strength. His confidence was greatly boosted. Elder Nangong did not seem to hear Xiaoma's threat. He carefully observed the bluish-purple flame in her eye sockets. As if he suddenly thought of something, he turned to look at Xiao Chen and asked with narrowed eyes, "Boy, I heard that there is a kind of quenching fire in the world, also known as the heavenly flame. It is not afraid of any water source, and the most powerful one can even burn everything in the world. Did you get it? What's the true tempering mystical flame?" Xiao Chen moved his aching right arm and pretended to be nonchalant as he said, "I'm from the countryside. I don't understand the nonsense you're talking about. It's your magic tool, that purplish-blue flame." Elder Nangong's face turned cold. He couldn't tell if this kid was pretending to be stupid or if he was really stupid. "Oh, that." Xiao Chen grinned and laughed heartlessly, "I bought a lighter and it was given to me for free. I thought the color was not bad, so I used it to bluff people. What a waste of God's gift." Elder Nangong snorted angrily and looked back at the faint blue flame. A hint of greed flashed in his eyes as he said, "Boy, give me your quenching fire, and I can consider not pursuing the matter of burning sky faction robbing our profound cloud sex treasure for the time being. What do you think? Are you King sick?" Xiao Chen stood behind Elder Nangong and secretly gave Xiaoma a look. He kept scolding, "You old fart, do you have no money to buy a coffin? Was he blinded by lard? Why did he want every good thing he saw? Why don't you go and collect junk?" Before he finished speaking, Xiao Chen's feet gently stepped on the ground. His figure was like a breeze as he suddenly appeared on top of Elder Nangong's head. His left palm gradually condensed a cyclone. "Old thing, how dare you ignore me? I'll make you pay the price you deserve. TSK, TSK, TSK." And Xiaomo received Xiao Chen's gaze and immediately laughed strangely. The flying sword in his hand ignited a towering flame as he slashed at Elder Nangong's left shoulder. "Humph, it's just a small trick. How dare a grain of rice shine?" Elder Nangong snorted coldly as he raised his spear and easily blocked Xiaomo's flying sword. Xiao Chen wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to strike, but Elder Nangong seemed to have eyes on top of his head. While blocking the flying sword, he waved the shield in his left hand up and directly knocked Xiao Chen away. Elder Nangong had just finished off Xiao Chen with this move and his other hand immediately turned his wrist flexibly. The long spear took advantage of the momentum to deflect the flying sword's blade. The sharp tip of the spear moved forward and stabbed Xiaoma's right leg. He. "Old man, are you a fool? How dare you stab me with an ordinary weapon? This is simply..." "What?" At first, little demon was smug and wanted to mock him, but when he looked down, he found that his thigh that had been stabbed was continuously leaking black gas. He was shocked. Bang! At this time, there was a loud noise. After being sent flying by Elder Nangong, Xiao Chen smashed heavily into the wall. Wood shaving splattered everywhere as the wall collapsed, burying Xiao Chen inside. The dust that flew up filled the living room. Husband Xiao Chen. Exalted immortal master. Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi, who were standing on the side, could not help but be horrified when they saw this scene. They shouted in unison and then moved, ready to run over to check on Xiao Chen's condition. However, as soon as the two of them took a step, 5 figures suddenly appeared in front of them. It was the 5 disciples of the profound cloud sect. They blocked in front of them. All 5 of them were exuding faint yuan qi from their bodies, fully displaying their cultivation bases of the consummate nascent soul stage. They did not attack Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi, instead standing in a straight line in front of them. It was obvious that they did not want to let the 2 of them pass so easily. Hongzhu and Gong Xiaoxi both had fuming looks on their faces, but they also knew that with their strength, they would not be able to defeat any one of them in a one-on-one fight, not to mention that there were currently 5 nascent soul stage cultivators glaring at them. They had no choice but to stand on their tiptoes and peer at the large hole, but it was completely gray and they could not see the situation clearly, so they could only stare anxiously. Seeing that his disciple had the situation under control, Elder Nangong sneered and turned his gaze back to Xiaoma. He said lightly, "Although I don't know what you are, even an immortal cultivator of a higher level than me would not be able to gain any advantage over these 2 magic tools, let alone a nondescript thing like you. You'd better surrender and hand over the heavenly fire of quenching truth." Chapter 1443. Hee, then why don't you try this move? And Xiaoma suddenly let out a sly laugh. The black gas in his body surged quickly and surged towards the part of his thigh that was stabbed. Elder Nangong's black spear was still stuck in his wound. The next moment, a blue-purple flame suddenly sprang out of Xiaoma's wound and instantly ignited the black spear. The flame spread rapidly along the handle of the spear. And Xiaoma took the opportunity to raise the flying sword in his hand and slashed at Elder Nangong's head. Elder Nangong did not expect Xiaoma to make such a move. He could not help but frown slightly. He wanted to withdraw his spear first, but he found that the spear had been locked by the black gas and could not move. At the critical moment, Elder Nangong quickly raised the white diamond-shaped shield in his other hand to block the attack of the flying sword. He chanted a spell silently and turned the phantom spear into a black jade artifact. Only then did the flame on the spear completely extinguish. And Xiaoma was stunned. He did not expect the old man to play such a shameless trick. Before he could think about how to deal with it, Elder Nangong's right hand shook slightly. He had already flashed the spear again and stabbed it straight at Xiaoma's chest. Not expecting the opponent to make a move so quickly, Xiaoma was taken aback. He quickly shrank his body into the flying sword and manipulated the flying sword to avoid the sharp edge of the spear. He then circled around the living room and stopped next to the damaged wall. Understanding Xiaoma's intentions, Elder Nangong raised his eyebrows and said sarcastically, "Don't tell me you want to rescue your master? He has been seriously injured by me. Even if he is rescued, it will be..." Elder Nangong's voice suddenly stopped mid-sentence. It was as if someone had grabbed his neck and he was unable to speak. His expression became serious as he stared at the pile of broken bricks. He could feel that the ruins that buried Xiao Chen had not moved at all before, but now it began to faintly exude a terrifying aura. It was as if a sleeping ancient behemoth had yawned and was about to open its eyes and wake up. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, a vigorous figure suddenly rushed out of the ruins, bringing with it a trail of dust, bursting out with a suffocating pressure. It rotated slightly in the air, and then slowly landed on the suspended flying sword. It was Xiao Chen himself with a bloodstain on the corner of his mouth. Exalted Immortal Master! Gong Xiaoxi cheered, his eyes flashing with admiration and worship. His master was still the best. Even after being knocked down, he could still stand up energetically. Xiao Chen. Hongzhu saw Xiao Chen floating in the air, but only called out a single word, a trace of doubt flashing across his face. Why does Xiao Chen's husband seem a little different from before? Ignorant Junior, you're just at the peak of the mysterious ascension stage, what's so great about you? A cold voice suddenly sounded in the room. Xiao Chen wiped away the bloodstain on the corner of his mouth, a cold killing intent flashing across his eyes. He quickly drove the flying sword toward Elder Nangong, clenching his fist tightly, the surging yuan qi covering the surface of his fist rapidly expanding, and then he punched out with all his strength. Elder Nangong's mouth twitched slightly, feeling strange in his heart. In addition to Hongzhu, he could also clearly feel that the boy in front of him seemed to have suddenly changed into a different person. Not only did his strength skyrocket, even the tone of his voice had changed. However, when Elder Nangong saw Xiaochen charging at him, he did not dare to be negligent. Without any time to think, he hurriedly placed the white rhombus-shaped shield in front of him. He circulated his essence with all his might to resist this earth-shattering attack. Boom! As the fist and shield collided, a muffled thunderous explosion reverberated back and forth in the reception room, causing everyone present to feel a buzzing sound in their ears. Many people even involuntarily took a step back, feeling a stifling pain in their chests. After this one move, Elder Nangong felt his left hand go numb, but he did not have time to move his wrist, and immediately looked at his diamond shield. With one look, Elder Nangong's expression immediately changed. He was shocked to discover that his invincible white diamond-shaped shield had actually been smashed into a fine crack. But before he could make any counterattack, Elder Nangong saw a black shadow from the corner of his eye, hand holding a bluish-purple flying sword, suddenly slashing at him from the side. Elder Nangong did not dare to use his shield to block. He hurriedly waved the black spear in his right hand, blocking Xiaochen's slashing sword. But in his heart, he was very surprised. Even his shield had a crack. Why did this boy seem to be fine? In fact, Xiaochen's hand was also faintly aching at the moment, but his body was currently temporarily controlled by the Elder Heaven Ancestor, so although he could feel the pain, he could not do anything about it. He could only quietly stay in the sea of consciousness, letting the Elder Heaven Ancestor do whatever he wanted. After using the black spear to block the flying sword, and after dodging Xiaochen's leg sweep, Elder Nangong finally recovered, took a big step back, and cautiously stared at Xiaochen. I can't believe that at such a young age, you actually know how to hide your strength. There was a hint of killing intent in Elder Nangong's tone, but even if you are already at the peak of the profound ascension stage, I will still kill you today. At this time, Elder Nangong wanted to kill Xiaochen, not only because of the mission, but also because this boy had this kind of cultivation at such a young age. He must be an amazing genius, and there must be a very strong force behind him. Now that the situation between him and Xiaochen was already in a deadlock, if he let him go, sooner or later, Xiaochen would become a threat to the Xianyan sect. Elder Heaven Ancestor smiled coldly. He did not reply, but manipulated Xiaochen's body. His right hand punched fiercely, once again hitting the white diamond shield of Elder Nangong. His left hand condensed an ice ball technique, and threw it towards Elder Nangong's knee. Hehe, you really are young and inexperienced. Do you think you can break my shield with just your flesh and blood? Elder Nangong saw Xiaochen's action, and a trace of contempt appeared on his face. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he heard a crack in his ear. Another crack appeared on his diamond-shaped shield, and this crack was obviously much bigger than the previous one. What? How is this possible? Elder Nangong was just about to exclaim. He felt a sudden cold suddenly approaching his leg. He did not have time to look down to see what it was. He immediately dodged it. Although he dodged the ice ball technique, Elder Nangong was shocked again and again. His original keen insight of the surrounding environment was somewhat weakened. After taking 2 steps back, his feet suddenly slipped, and his whole body lost its center of gravity, falling hard on the ground. It was as embarrassing as one could imagine.